Folks, we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. Stage right is none other than the one, the only auctioneer extraordinaire, Jim Kitchen.
He's
And
back.
I'm
and
back and sick.
holding us up from below,
Oh,
Ah,
week work spouse, bad Mike Battleotto.
God, Mike can move the world for us.
Somebody
I think my headphones are out of power, which so we might have to be a little echoey tonight. I'm trying to charge them as we talk. I may be out of luck, so we'll see if
Yeah,
I can move
Eric, you
halfway.
seem a little quiet too. Oh, look at that. The
Yeah.
peanut gallery says we're late. Well, fine.
Oh,
We're always late. Bah.
Bah humbug.
You don't know late until I oversleep on a nap. Then we get when Glenn's calling my phone at 8:10. That's late. Okay, this isn't late. This is just us being the normal, not on time. What can I?
Well,
do?
we got so much to talk about this week. We have Jim back from Gen Con. He's going to have a lot of really cool information. If you're an auction wonk like I am, which I am, he's going to have a lot of good auction information. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about everybody caught COVID this year, including our buddy Jim. And what I kind of wanted to talk about that because this seems to be a.
So
I mean, you always had Concred, but now it's just crazy. It's like now it's. Gary Con was the same way. Everybody got back from Gary Con, and it was like across the board, everybody was just down.
So this is going to sound like a pitch for North Texas. So I'll say that and we'll get that out of the way.
Keep it going. Yeah, I'm not going to bother you.
But I'll just say that right now, if you intend to go to a large convention, and when I say large, when we'll say density, right? So that's probably a better way to phrase it. If you intend to go to a high density gaming convention or a high density comic show or whatever, you are rolling the dice and they're going to come up COVID. We caught wind on Wednesday night that Peter Adkinson had contracted COVID earlier. Either he was diagnosed or he tested positive on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, one or the other, and was gone, like he left. But COVID immediately reared its head at Gen Con. I kept hearing through the course of the week that more people had it. I was talking before the show with who I believe is the super spreader. I went to the Diana Jones Awards on Wednesday night, and there was a person who very excited to be there, sweaty dude, hugs you a lot, and I'm pretty sure he's responsible for a swath of COVID. I started to feel really crummy on Saturday. It got worse on Sunday. When I left on Sunday at one point on the drive home, I just had to pull over to a rest stop because I thought I was going to faint. I had a high temperature on Sunday night, and I've been fighting congestion and crap ever since. But my voice is pretty much back to normal, so if I thought I couldn't do this, I wouldn't. But I'm still banished to my volcano lair in the basement, and I am not allowed to surface from this until I test negative.
Well, my story of Gary Con was very similar. As you guys remember, after Gary Con, I came on for 10 minutes and then I was out. The rest of the that's the first. But the same thing happened. I was all right. I think I caught it that Saturday night because that Saturday night I went to the bar area in Gary Con, which is always pretty crowded, but this time was just ridiculous. You couldn't even hear yourself think. It was so loud. And so Sunday on the drive home, I started feeling weird. I drove home with poor Steve Getty, poor Guppy. He was in the car with me. Nowhere to go, nowhere to escape to. And I'm
trapped, just trapped.
Coughing, yeah.
That's
and so
right.
then Sunday,
you should have just licked him. It would have saved time for everybody. We
thought about spooning and making out that night just to get it over with. But when we stayed in the hotel on the way back. The next day, he ended up driving most of the time. I was so, like you said, Jim, I felt faint. I felt terrible. Turns out I did not have COVID. I had just garden variety flu. But you're very correct when you talk about density. It has more to do with density than it has to do with amount. Because I've never been sick at Gamehole, even though Gamehole regularly has about 5, 6, 7,000 people. I've never been sick at Gamehole, but Gamehole is extremely spread out. It is a convention center They don't jam the tables
God.
into the room. You can walk down the hall and not have to bump. You're not doing this, bumping into people.
I love this. Somebody's like, "Did you get any Concrud?" Yes, I got COVID. That's the new Concrud. Concrud is upgraded to COVID now. Jesus.
So smaller cons like North Texas were very spread out, and that's part of the thing that Doug and I always wanted. We usually only have 2 tables per room, which look, we would love to shove more tables in there and get more games going, but this is why we don't. This is noise pollution. I mean, did your ears stop ringing after a week, after 3 days, Jim, because all the noise?
So I have a lot of Gen Con observations, and so I'll sort of throw this out at a pace. First of all, I'll save the auction hall for last because we're going to deep dive into the auction, and I want to really give every bit of credit where credit is due. There was a lot going on at Gen Con. It was the 50th anniversary of D&D. They were selling players' handbooks. They had the stamps. I got to the auction. I got to the main hall, the vendors hall. I got over there a few times, and so let me talk about some shenanigans. Gen Con's got to get their head around how you manage giant lines. Now, so I'm a Kingdom Death guy, right? And I can talk about Kingdom Death, and I will. Because for the first time ever in history, I actually registered for the first time in 31 years. I registered for events to play at Gen Con, and I played in 2 Kingdom Death events. And I'll come back to that. But Kingdom Death always has releases for Gen Con. They have a giant line. I want you to imagine the sweltering mass of humanity where there were 3 lines in a single aisle against a wall for Kingdom Death, for somebody doing some kind of pins, and then a third vendor, and they were on the other side of the pin line, so I have no idea what the crap they were selling. But there were 3 lines, and God love her heart, like the Gen Con staff member that was trying to supervise, this was their section, was about 4'8". And so she couldn't see everywhere. She was sort of trying to run up and down. The lines were this just press of humanity, and Gen Con's got to figure out a way to restrict 1 line per aisle. You can't get by. Interestingly, anecdotally, I heard that the reason they were able to sell more tickets is because they're now making more use of the Lucas Oil Arena. They let them sell more tickets. We hit 71,000 this year. This is pretty batshit crazy. It's the most crowded I've ever seen it. I usually try to do every aisle twice. I probably got every aisle once, and I had to go back a couple of times to do it. But eventually I just got to the point where I can't get around and I can't see. And so I know there's a Paizo booth. I never saw it. The Goodman Games booth. The Goodman Games booth was absolutely swamped. Hashtag not a cult out in force. I saw, and like a lot of people, when you say I'm going to Gen Con, there are people that are like, oh my God, can you get me this? Can you get me this? Can you get me this? This is the, and I have no problems ever doing that for people. I absolutely think that that's one of the most decent things you can do. It started with my friend Tim Pollard in the UK. He wanted some Star Trek model ship that they were only selling at Gen Con. And son of a bitch, I used my golden ticket. I got in line. I stood around. I got him his ship. And I'm glad to do that. This year I had somebody who really wanted the WizKid miniatures. I got them that. I had somebody else who wanted the BattleTech exclusives. God help me, I got them that. But exclusives are clearly, that's a cachet builder at Gen Con, and you get the lines for it. Yeah. Sure enough, whatever. But pleased to see the BattleTech pods are back. Hooray! Oh my God, they went away during COVID, and they're back. They have them sort of tucked in the back of the C hall, and I was tickled to death to see it. No shortage of gaming everywhere. And the Lucas Oil, where Lucas Oil was sort of like, we're going to put stuff over here and we hope you go see it. Now it's a key part of the entire gaming experience. They're going to keep filling Lucas Oil with events. It's the spillover from C Hall. So if you're an exhibitor and you want in C Hall, you're going to have to fight it out. But it's very easy to put events that don't give a shit about being in the C Hall over in Lucas Arena. Goodman has a huge tournament over there. The Fight in the Skies stuff is over there, but it's just growing and growing and growing apace. What was the hot release? I'll tell you.
Attendance was 71,000 this year.
Yeah, 71,000. Batshit crazy. Really and truly, it was just like swimming in a petri dish. It was just wonderful. So I always, people always ask me, well, what was the hot game? And I say, I go by what I see. I go by the bags that I see, because everybody selling the hot game has a bag for the hot game, and that's what you see. I saw a lot of Halo, whatever the miniature game is from Mantic. Mm-hmm. They sold 150 a day for 4 days, and that's all that's being released in the market before the release of the actual game in October. And so I know Ronnie Renton that founded Mantic. We used to work together at Games Workshop. I caught up with Ronnie for a while. He said that sales have been very, very good, very, very brisk, and going very, very well. Let's see. Other stuff I saw no one talking about buying their player's handbook. I'm sure there were people buying the new player's handbook, but I didn't see it. Lorcana, the Disney card game. That seems to be picking up as far as card game, because it captures two obsessive compulsive interests. It captures Disney and it captures collectible card games. So good for Lorcana. Other stuff, I know that Corvus Belli launched their new fantasy game, whatever, Ravenwood, or I can't remember the name of it. They had lines, but they didn't have ridiculous lines. Workshop was busy. Games Workshop was busy, but not stupid. I don't know. I'll talk about playing. I'll talk about playing at Kingdom Death now. Yeah, and somebody brings up Shadow Dark. Let me say that Shadow Dark swept the innies. Absolutely deservingly swept the innies.
Awesome.
Good on Kelsey. She was there. Yeah. Everybody that I talk to agrees that Kelsey's having the year that she deserved to have for bringing Shadow Dark.
I don't know. She also won the 3Caster Award this year for best
at North Texas, and that was the first. I think that was the first award she won.
She said that was the first. She said that was the first award she won. I told her, "You're going to win the award at Annie." I told her, I said, "You'll win the Annie Award for best game." I didn't know she'd win best game, product of the year, layout and design, and rules, which is amazing sweep of everything. It's like winning the MVP in baseball, batting average, home runs, RBIs, and MVP. I mean, that's it's amazing.
So let me talk about a couple other things. So Gen Con's VIGs get a bag of stuff. The bag of stuff usually is either something really, really hot and they're desperate to get influencers to talk about it, or it's really, really, really slow selling and they want to write off the inventory. And this year, you didn't get one bag, you got 2 giant bags instead of 1 giant bag, and you got a carrying bag with something else in it. And so I'm not gonna talk about what was in the bags, because somebody will be like, well, which is it, Jim? Is it something really hot or is it something really slow selling? And I don't want to be the guy that talks about that. But looking at what was in the bags, oh, there are some dogs. There are some absolute dogs. Interestingly, some of the biggest items are associated with something that rhymes with Critical Role. And I'm like, isn't that interesting that this merchandise is starting to filter out in a different way. But as all of you who are regulars know, Gen Con is a work week for me. And by work, I mean at the Gen Con auction. I've been very lucky to be participating for over a decade now at the Gen Con auction. I'm an auctioneer at the auction. I help with intake. I'm the guy bulldogging lines. And let me talk to the things that we at the auction, all the auction staff are already talking about, right? So let me give an idea of numbers, right? So Jim, how did it go? Well, last year, the number of items that were auctioned was 3,888. This year, it was 4,150. Now, that's not the total number of things that came across the podium. That's what sold. And so that's already an increased number. The number of items that were in the auction in 2023 was 14,078. And that includes the auction and the consignment store. This year, it was 22,781. Do you hear my inner child crying? Because my inner child is crying. We had 2 vendors. We had 2 different people that combined brought 2,500 items into the auction house. Holy shit. Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday is the single busiest day the auction house has ever had as far as intake. It's absolutely nuts. We had people that were queuing up with mountains of stuff starting at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. It was a real challenge, but hats off to the entire Gen Con auction team for really pulling together. And we got, I think, I can't even remember the number we got done by the time we closed the doors on Wednesday afternoon. And I'll talk to a couple of pet peeves real quick. You know, it doesn't matter how many times you tell people things, they don't do them. And one of the things that we always say is you got to have your tags printed, taped, and ready to go and on your items.
Yeah.
You can't just show up and be like, oh, can you print my tags for me? And do you have any tape? And oh my God. And so we had a couple of high volume folks who rolled in and were like, oh, I don't have my tags on. I haven't got anything taped on. And you're just like, okay. And the only person that we did not process on Wednesday, and we had a couple of those folks that we did process, the only person we didn't process on Wednesday was the person who showed up about 5 minutes after we had closed the door and didn't have his tags on his stuff and didn't have anything taped to his stuff. And I'm sorry, buddy. I can't help you with that, right? And he came back the next day, right? He came back the next day. The line moved very, very quickly. We had the majority of everybody in the store by Wednesday. So a lot of talk about the collectibles auction this year, but I want to talk about the charity auction. We raised a staggering amount of money again. I'm reading the release, and it's a little interesting. Amount raised for Charity Tangram and the Rose Gauntlet Foundation, it says $24,000. Now, I don't know if that's $24,000 each or if it's $24,000 total. I haven't gotten a buzz about that, so I'll defer and let somebody else in the audience or something just correct me on that. But the collectibles auction was pretty fire. We had a lot of good stuff. We had a lot of shrink. Oh, Jerry says it was total. Okay. So we had a lot of really great stuff in the collectibles auction. And we've talked about this before. When we moved, everybody was like, oh, there were a few people who were like, oh my God, the auction's going to die. It's terrible. It's the end of the universe. Nobody's going to find you. Jesus wept. They found us. Don't worry. They found us. And the other is that from a collector's standpoint, the collectibles auction, you know, a couple of the regular heavy hitters, 2 brothers who have been active on the AKM for a while, have a monsters collection. They were bored. Well, sure. When you own 99% of everything that TSR ever looked at making, you're going to be bored because at this point, you're only upgrading. You're not really, but we have a lot of people who are still working on collections or who have just started to collect.
And Jim, let me interrupt a second. That's good. You want a lot of people that are getting into the hobby, that are younger, that are buying stuff, because you don't want this to be like stamp collecting and coin collecting, where if you go to a convention of that, it's a bunch of 80-year-old men who are selling to other 70, 80-year-old men. You want the young people in there. So, yes, I know that the Uber collectors are probably yawning at 99% of the stuff, but too bad. You have it all. Let somebody else have fun at the auction.
That's right. And truthfully, if you'd like a vision of how things can go bad in the collectibles market, look at O-Gauge toy trains. O-Gauge toy trains went exactly the way you're talking about, right? All the people, the highlight of the highest year of Lionel sales was 1953. The TCA exploded, and they just started dying off. And we don't want that. We want a hobby that grows. We want a hobby that has a lot of great things going for it. So we were really blessed with some amazing things in the collectible auction. We'll talk about the wood grain in a minute. We had original art. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let me talk about slabs, because I think that's one of the things that we're going to come back to a couple times. And
I'm very interested, yes.
And so slabbing things in the game industry is starting to pick up speed. But let me make sure I state clearly what you should be hearing at every podium, no matter which auction you go to. It doesn't matter if you go to one where I'm an auctioneer, if you go to other game conventions and they have auctions, what you should be hearing is what we say. This is an item that has been slabbed and graded by X, and that can be CB. I don't even know the initials.
CG. There's two main companies. There's CGC and there's CBCS. They do really
CBCS and CBG. So these two companies, these are the primary companies. They are the ones who have chosen the grade that is on the slab. It's a sealed slab.
Yes. As
an auctioneer, the Gen Con auction folks, we don't cast any, we don't agree, disagree, or have an opinion on the grade. We simply present it to you and say, this is what CBG or CCB, whoever, this is what company X has said is the grade on the item that is sealed in this plastic coffin. So we do that for a lot of smart reasons. Number one is, in the past, in another industry, comic books, there was some shenanigans around inflated grading.
Oh yeah.
And this blew up, and it blew up in a big way, and it caused problems. And so what do we do about that? We have to make sure that we're stating as the people who are auctioning something that the grade didn't come from us. That if you buy this, the grade came from whoever it is that slabbed it, and we don't have anything to do with that. And so we're not getting involved in the opinions of what it is. You know, Bill Meinhardt grades everything in the collectibles auction the best he can, but we aren't going to crack a slab, and we aren't going to put our nose on the line for agreeing, disagreeing, or you know, whatever in regards to a slab condition. And so that makes auctioning slabbed items a little more difficult. You essentially put the onus, buyer beware, caveat emptor, you put that on the people bidding. That if you trust CBG, then you're going to bid on CBG. If you don't trust CBG, you should not bid on CBG items.
You're basically, so I'm going to give an example here, Joe. Here's something I recently got slapped. It's a Dragon magazine. It was in very nice condition. It's a 9.4, which is considered near mint. For 9.2, 9.4, 9.6, and 9.8 are considered near mint. It was a beautiful copy, is why I decided to get it slabbed. So what they'll do is, it's slabbed. On the back, there is a code there.
Yep,
so
a barcode.
So I'm going to tell you what this says online is, if you look at the code, note, spine stress does not break color. Color transfer along spine edge back cover. It's very light. This is why this is a 9.4. It's almost perfect. So what they are doing is that they're letting you know, look, here's what we're grading. Here's why this didn't get what we consider a perfect grade. Because when you grade, and Jim probably knows this too, he's a big comic fan, you start at 10 and work your way down. Every flaw.
You only have one direction to go, and it's down.
It's down. And so for the most part, I find that grades for CGC and CBCS are very accurate. I personally think the CBCS is a little more strict, which I like, actually. I would rather them give me a 9.2 than a 9.4 if that's what the true grade is. But yes, you were correct. When you are buying a slabbed item, you're buying something that has been graded by, you assume, professionals, and they have done due diligence. Now, it is been on record where somebody doesn't like a grade, they crack the slab, they send it in again to another company, they get a better grade sometimes. It will happen.
And also to the services of what you can have done with the things that you're sending in have changed. It used to be that people just sent them off. Now you can send them off and get them pressed. And a lot of times people will buy something and they will actually send it to a professional, for lack of better words, comic book restorer or something similar. And in doing so, they will try to get the grade up. Again, stuff that has nothing to do with my world. Right. My job is to try to sell it for the seller and get the highest amount I possibly can. What we saw, and I was talking about this before the show with Mike and Eric, one of the things that we saw was And this came up in a discussion on the Achaeum. Somebody said, well, you guys didn't start auctions with the minimum bids that were on the paper. Well, first of all, there are no minimum bids. A good auctioneer, the worst auctioneer in the world is somebody where the reserve is $300 and they simply say, we'll start at $300.
Yeah.
Because you aren't going to go anywhere. Right?
No, you're not letting the market Jim knows this, and Jim is an excellent auctioneer, and I've done some auction too. You have to build interest and suspense in the item. And you don't do that by starting off with some gigantic price. You build up to that price. And then, as Jim said, when you hit that price, okay, the reserve has been met. We're free to go now. Everything is all systems on now. But you will get better bids doing that than if you start off at the reserve. Much, much better bids.
Yes. And so we had several slabbed items, and all of you can go to the link. If Eric wanted to share the link, he could. You can go and look at this year's 2024 auction data from Gen Con and take a look and poke around and see things. But one of the things you should understand is we don't have a set minimum price to start the auction. That's up to auctioneers. And so we had a lot of slabbed items that had a reserve price of $250. I'm not going to start it at $250. I'm not going to start it at $125. I was starting those at $50, and I'll explain my reasoning for that.
Real quick, Jim. Let me go real quick. I'll let you. So the pricing, because I just got an order back from CBCS. It's base price right off the bat for a module to get slabbed is $25.
Yep.
If it's not in shrink, you're going to want it pressed. Pressing will take out the creases, the wrinkles, the bad stuff. That is another $30. So right off the bat, if you're using CGT is very similar, you are spending $55. That is not counting shipping. If you have to ship it into CBCS, Bingo. I live about 20 miles away. I could drive my stuff over. You're spending another $20, $25 to have it shipped to CBCS. And as Jim said, if you're having that order shipped to Gen Con, you're spending another $20, $25. So a lot of these guys, you're in it right off the bat for $100. You better be damn sure that your item is going to sell for over $100, because that's not even including. We're not even including what you paid for the item. We're not even including that in there. So that's why it's to your advantage to only submit items. If you're going to do this in the future, for anybody that's interested in slabbing, I would only submit items that either you personally enjoy. And last week I showed the B1 I had signed by Darlene. It's only like a 6.5. I don't care. I want it over my desk. I want Darlene's signature across the cover. That's all I care about. But if you're going to bring something to auction, I would not submit things that are you don't think are near mint or less. You want at least a 9.0 in that stuff. Because otherwise, if you submit a regular item, which I consider about 7.5, you're probably going to lose money because of all the expenses I just named. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim. So right off the bat, these guys are in for $100. They're in for $100 right off the bat for getting an item slabbed, no matter what the condition is.
And so when I look at this, when I look at the sold data, when I look at the things that actually sold and where they got and so on and so forth, I'm trying to go through this to find sold slab. The one that sticks to my mind was a Rick and Morty D&D comic book that had a blank cover where they had actually gotten an artist to actually do a beholder, and it was a piece of artwork. That one sold. Wow. But the majority of them, the majority of the slab items we had did not sell. And so, it's not that we aren't trying to sell them. But if your reserve is if your reserve is high enough that it acts as a barrier to sales, that's where you have to rethink this. And so we did not have anything. I don't believe we had anything higher than a 9 point. We didn't have anything above a 9.2 that didn't sell. Anything under 9.2 or lower, I don't remember selling. I haven't crawled through the data, but I can tell you that we had a lot of other data. Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm going to say something. That tells me something, Jim. Here's what it tells me as somebody that sells this stuff. It tells me that people were trying to get rid of lesser quality items at the Gen Con auction. This is my opinion only. But they were not willing to put anything like a 9.8, which would have done really well. A 9.8 is near mint item. I think this tells me that they wanted to get rid of items of lesser quality, perhaps thinking the Gen Con audience was not really up on, well, what's the big difference between a 7.0 and 9.0? It's all the same. It's all slabbed. There is a huge difference between something that's 7.0 and 9.0. A monstrous difference. That's my opinion only. I'm not casting aspersions on anybody that sent in slabbed items, but it sounds to me like, I wouldn't say dumping. They weren't dumping the items, but they obviously, these are things they didn't want in their collection. And probably because they sent it in, thought it was going to get a higher rate. Oh, it's only a 7.0. I really don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and just send that to the Gen Con auction.
And I just can't understand. I can't understand why you would send something in good condition to be slabbed. I just don't understand that. And slab simply means it's frozen in time, right? You've essentially sealed it in an acrylic case and you sent it to a grading authority and they have applied their consistent rules of grading and it simply says it's this. But as we've discussed previously, a 9.8 is near perfect. It's very rare. I don't know if I've ever seen a 10.0 anything from a slab service.
But sometimes you see cards that way. I don't rarely see a comic, and I don't think there's one single RPG in the database, either CGC or CBCS of 10.0.
So let me before we dive into what didn't sell, and I think that's going to be pretty interesting. Let's talk about what did sell. Holy crap! We sold a wood grain box set for $16,000. There's a clip of that of me auctioning it off that somebody shot. As always, it's never from my best side because we all know I have a face for radio. But we had stiff bidding. Now, before I go any further, let's be honest. The seller agreed it was fair to fair minus. It was not complete. And one of the things that you'll see in the video is that I'm reading the exact condition of the wood grain box set. As the auctioneer who's selling it, I need to make sure that the audience knows what's going on and knows the condition of the item. And I don't want somebody saying, well, your auctioneer said it was excellent. No, it was fair to fair minus. And I talk about the flaws because if you're going to bid, the reserve was $12,000. And Bill Meinhardt and I both were like, it's in fair minus. And the seller said, well, you know what? Like, I'll be at the auction. I want to see how this goes. It's a true first printing. It's been 4 or 5 years since we've had a true first printing at the Gen Con auction. So sure enough, right? Let's see how this rolls out. And then you can watch the video and see. And the video is pretty, it's the first time in an auction. Now, normally what I do is I'll start one. If it's a slower selling item or I've only got 2 or 3 folks bidding on something in $1 increments, I'll do that. Then I'll take it to $2. If we get over $100, I'll take it to $10. If we get over $500, I'll up the bids to $25. If we get above 1,000, I start screwing with people I'll go to hundreds, because at that level, you're already in for 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400. It's both to save time and to get the maximum amount for the seller. I'm not there to do 1,078, 1,079. No, right? Like, we don't have time for that. Did you see the mountain of stuff behind me I have to auction? Because I got to auction all that. And so this was the first time ever it got to $10,000, and I just went to $1,000 increments. And we went 6 times. It went to $16,000. And the bidder, the runner-up, you could tell he was pained to be lowering his bidder card, but he finally had to at $16,000. And so the fellow who won has been coming to the Gen Con auction. A couple of the folks on staff have seen him before. Was unbelievably excited, had always wanted to own a first printing wood grain. Inherits the magical powers of a first printing wood grain, which makes you both prettier and more more handsome, and you're stronger, and your children will grow taller, and your teeth will straighten out, and your hair will fill in. All of these magical powers that come with owning a first printing wood grain. You'll grow a beard, you'll start anyway. So, but he was over the moon. He was absolutely over the moon. The next thing to really talk about is the artwork. We had a longtime collector who decided that he wanted to sell some artwork through the auction. It was a Parkinson. That was the one that really got a lot of the attention, and all of it, did very, very well. We had a lot of interested parties. We talked about it well before the auction started. Let's see here. So the Clyde Caldwell Spellfire sold for $1,700. The Keith Parkinson sold for $4,500. Let me sort by realized price. Hold on. Sorry. So yeah, the Keith Parkinson sold for $4,500. The Clyde Caldwell sold for $1,700. It was a good all around collectibles auction. We had something for everybody. We had a Titan, a Gorgon Star Titan. We had all of the supplements for Titan that came through the auction. It was just a great year. It really was. It was a great year. It's funny because I say this and I don't mean to harp on this, but we have had people who've been like, the auctions, I haven't gotten it. Again, buddy, you got 99% of everything TSR ever made. I'm sorry that we don't have the ultra rares that you're looking for. But if you are interested in collectibles, if you're interested in things, the Gen Con auction absolutely delivers. I've heard from a couple of people who are suffering from fear of missing out, which is fine, right? I had a lot of people that were, my poor phone was waterlogged with the salty tears of people who were not there and could not believe that we didn't have an online bidding system to service their needs. And I said essentially the same thing to each person who texted me or sent me a message, or I had a couple of emails. I was like, I'm sorry, but if you want to play, you got to be here. And you can call it old school if you want, but we had money in the crowd. We had bidders in the crowd. So we talked about what has sold. Let me talk about what didn't sell, right? So another comment I heard was there were a lot of no sales. Well, okay, sure. So let's talk about some of this. Let me pull up the spreadsheet. I'll go to the spreadsheet. So the most expensive reserve that we had that did not sell was a copy of Warriors of Mars. This came from Gary Gygax, and it was perfect. It was beautiful. Point of pride with Bill Meinhardt. He genuinely believes that he has the best copy in the world. I don't know. I don't have the two of them side by side to compare, but the one we had was spectacular. However, it's Warriors of Mars. It's not a wood grain, and it's never going to be a wood grain. The number of folks who are still digging out the Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars books the number of people buying the Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars books and reading them for the first time is a diminishing number. And people who love the Barsoom series and who love Edgar Rice Burroughs, and I'm firmly in that camp, I can't say that I would have spent that kind of money on it. And we didn't get that money for it. It's probably the nicest copy that's available for sale, but it had a reserve of $3,000. And
I'm sorry, what was the reserve? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
$3,000.
That's pretty hefty. That's pretty hefty.
That's an aggressive reserve. That tells me not that you kind of wanted to sell it, but you didn't.
Yeah.
If you had put the reserve at $1,500, we'd have sold it above $1,500 and probably would have found out what the market price was. My educated guess is that it probably would have been north of $2,000, but still below $3,000. So, okay. So let me talk to the next item that didn't sell. We had a white box set, an original 1975 D&D box set with 6 additional booklets. Condition was a factor here. Condition, it was, we'll call it well loved, but the reserve was $1,500. if you're going to ask $1,500 for a white box, you better have a pretty good white box.
Yeah.
You better have a white box that shows well, looks good, or the box can be but the books better make up for that. You can find additional boxes out there, but you better have something that really...
Or it has to be signed by, let's say, Gary or Tim or, somebody. It's got to have some cachet to it for that much. Because, you can still find white boxes out there. If you're looking, you can find a white box for $500. That might not be the best condition, but you can get a white box for what I would consider a reasonable amount. $1,500. You're right, Jim. That has to have something exceptional about it, either a cachet of a signature, or it just has to look. I've got a near mint white box. I mean, it's near mint, and I probably wouldn't part with it. But if I had to part with it, it would be in that range. I would want something very spectacular for it.
I had one too until it got crushed. Thank you, movers. So moving on, we had a they called it Excellent Warriors of Mars that did not sell. I'm sorry, that they did not bring. So this person bought 3 from Gary's estate. He bought the perfect one. He bought one that he did not bring, and then he bought another one. And I'll talk about that in a second. So let me get back up to his. So then we had Knights of the Dinner Table, number 1 and number 2, CGC graded at 9.0 and 9.2 respectively. So number 1 was 9 and number 2 was 9.2.
And by the way, low print runs on those. I think the print run's about 300. Very low print runs. Extremely low print runs.
These are not the first appearance of Spider-Man. These are not the first appearance of Superman. This is, and I love Jolly to death, but this does not have the same kind of wide interest that comic book characters do.
Yeah.
I love Jolly, but if they had wanted to sell these, they could have had a reserve of $500, and they very well might have hit it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they normally sell for, but an almost $1,000 reserve, we didn't come close to that.
I sold a pair of I sold a guy's collection a few years ago, Jim, and I believe I got the number 1 was really nice. I believe I got $300 for it. This was on eBay. This was not on another site, but I sold a 1, 2, and a 3, which are the lowest print runs. Their print runs are about 300, and I do know that I got about 300 for one, and it was in beautiful shape. They were all in nice shape. So yeah, that's pretty ambitious, Jim. That's very ambitious.
We had a Gen Con 14 promotional poster that had come from Frank Mincer. It did not sell. We had an expert set shrink, but it was in dished condition and so on. Reserve of $500. It didn't sell. Then we get to the other Warriors of Mars. Now, this was Gary's working copy. And by Gary's working copy, I mean it had been beat to death. It had notes in it. It had all sorts of scribbles here and there. It was incomplete. It had certainly seen better days. But the reserve was $500, and frankly, there's no shortage of knackered, beat-to-death copies of Warriors of Mars that are actually complete, and thus we didn't hit the reserve.
By the way, this is my copy. I had it slabbed. It's a 6.5, which is a little better than average. I mainly got it just because it was my copy. This is a display copy for me. This isn't going to be sold, but this is an average condition. It's got some issues, got some marks on the back and a few things, but it's just it's the only copy I had. It's got some smudging in the bottom. I wouldn't think to sell it, but we sold. So at the North Texas auction, Jim, a few years ago, we sold a pretty nice copy of Warriors of Mars, and I want to say it was. I think Bill had it ranked as excellent. I don't know, whatever. He had a few flaws in it, but it only got about $500, and it was in I thought it was in really nice shape. It was in better shape than this, the one I just showed you, 6.5. So it got $500, and I think that person was counting too much on the cachet of it being Gary's, because
Gary's handwritten notes are fine to one point.
Right.
I actually need to take a break. My dog is losing its mind, so I'm going to journey from the volcano lair, and I'll be right back. So hold that thought, campers, and I'll be right back.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about slabs. So the slab, like I said, this is a Warriors Mars 6.5. But when Jim was talking about the prices are, and I think Jerry had mentioned earlier, I think that's a good point, Jerry, is that people have to realize that just because something's in a slab, it's a display. It's graded displayed. It doesn't automatically make it worth more. And that is a very good point, Jerry. Whoever made that, I think it was Jerry made that. Because, yeah, that's a very good point, because I think a lot of people assume, and I think a lot of people that are just getting into the RPG collectible industry are going to assume there's something slabbed. What's slabbed? It must be worth more. No, it's worth whatever this is right up here, whatever that is. It's not worth more just because it's slab, because as I said, it only costs $50 to get this slab. So it's not like you put a whole lot of money into it. And you see a lot of people online asking for, $600, $700, $800 for slabbed items. They're counting on the fact that people want to display it, like, want to have it displayed and have it in a nice case. But the slabbing itself does not necessarily add a lot of worth to the item unless it's already in very nice condition. Otherwise, all it is, it's a storage device. It's something, I get a lot of this stuff because I don't want to ding this up anymore, right? I can drop this on the ground. I can lay it, whatever. I'm not going to flip through it anymore. I've got a PDF of it. But this is for display purposes only. So don't get tricked by saying, oh, it's slabbed, it has to be worth a lot more. No, it just means that somebody had the gumption and the $50 or $70 to send it into CGC or CBCS and have it slabbed. And that's why I told Jim that I think that a lot of people that submitted these slabbed items are trying to prey on the not intelligence, but the naivety of not knowing what slabbed items are, and they're thinking, oh, I've seen comics slabbed. If a game must be slabbed, it must be worth a lot of money. No, it's worth whatever the grade is on there. And add to that the fact is you're not going to be able to pull it out and flip through it. It's for display purposes only at that point. You're going to be able to put it on the wall and show it to people and not have to worry about grubby fingers, flipping through your, N1 and, hey, whoa, what are you doing? You're creasing it all up. Quit flipping through it. That way you can just have it on the wall. Look, that's the first module I've ever played in. M1, Cult of the Reptile, or blah, blah, blah. So I'm
So I'm back. We also then we had a 5th printing white box set with a reserve of $500, again, condition. We had a chainmail CGC graded at 3.0.
Below average, way below average.
And again, right? So we can't, a couple of things about an auction house. We can make recommendations, right? We can make recommendations. Having the seller in the audience to be able to say, drop the reserve, right? When they see the momentum peters out, they can say, send it, like drop the reserve. And to that seller's credit, the wood grain box, the first printing wood grain box seller, we had a conversation that we recognized he had a steep reserve. We were not sure that we would reach it. We had the conversation with him and said, will you be there? He said, yes. I said, okay. I said, if things stall out, I may ask you if it's okay to drop the reserve. And he goes, I'll think about it and I'll let you know if that happens. And that's not me saying, I need you to lower your reserve. It's not my job to tell you to lower the reserve. It's not my, you set your reserves. But you can say, I'm going to go on eBay and I'm going to look around, or I'm going to make a post in the AKM or on the Facebook AKM page and say, what do you think the reserve should be on this? You can ask people what their educated opinions are. When you arbitrarily choose a number, I got nothing to work with. I've absolutely nothing to work with. And again, it's not my job to say you're wrong. I think I can do sort of the post-game analysis and say, well, we can look at this and we can look at this. But then there's condition. And if you're going to send something off to get slabbed, my advice is send the best you got.
Absolutely.
Don't send the worst you have. No. Send the best you have. There's plenty of places there are plenty of RPG marketplaces on Facebook or elsewhere that you can shovel the dreck out of your collection. And I mean, I've seen stuff sell on some of these groups that I wouldn't use as an ashtray, and they're getting good money for it. okay, there's a sucker born every minute, and that copy of Chainmail 3.0 could have been an auction that could have gone in one of those places where, you know, they had $400 on it. I don't think I would have seen a copy of I don't think I've seen a copy of Chainmail in that condition sell for more than $250, $200, maybe.
So when you're getting something slab, there's two big reasons. Number one, for display purposes. That's why I send in my nicest stuff. My wife is building a shelf behind my desk. Hopefully by this time next year, I will be doing talking crypt from my desk, and you'll be able to see these, or to flip it and resell it. Those are the two reasons you do it.
Well,
There's no reason not to do the nicest ones you have. But
we talked about this. This is also a way of locking in the perception of what its condition is, so that when you and I and Tenkar die from COVID-37 that we all contracted at you name the high density convention, our beloved, family members can say, well, this is 9.8 and this should, blah, 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 blah.
I was going to say, when you get it, there's no reason to have lower quality stuff. So let me give an example.
Okay, wait. I disagree with that comment. Put that back up there. That's a horseshit comment.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not.
No. Put the comment back up from Chubby Funster.
Oh, Chubby.
Yeah. Let's talk about this. I was
going to have a fight with Jim about this.
No, that's horseshit. So let me tell you why. Kelsey is too nice. No, that's wrong. She's not too nice. We need more people like Kelsey in the damn hobby. We need people who are nice. We got enough grumpy bastards at this point. The last thing we need is to discourage people who are nice. She signs too much stuff. I disagree with this wholeheartily. I think that's a terrible idea.
I think Greg is tongue in cheek here.
No, I'm not off my rant yet. I'm going to keep going.
Okay, keep going. Let's bring it on.
So the reason is because again, we've got enough aloof, snobby bastards out there who just, I'm sorry, no, I see your sarcasm check, but put the other comment back up there. We got enough aloof, snobby bastards out there who think that just because they've published a role-playing game, that they're hot shit. Remember the guy's kids a couple of weeks ago? They're more published authors than 90%, 99% of the people out there. And she needs to become a mean recluse to drive up those prices. This is literally the antithesis of everything that we should be nurturing in the hobby. And I know he was being sarcastic, but I just want to go on the record and say, I want more nice people and I want less pricks. And that's it. So I appreciate that. We're all good.
And by the way, so Greg is the author of Shadow Sun and Shadow Rim. So and he's a grumpy bastard. He probably doesn't sign his stuff because he's an asshole. I bet he doesn't sign anything of his. Greg probably just tell you to buzz off though. That's a great rant. No, I was going to say about stuff getting slabbed. Send in your nicest stuff. Don't get shitty stuff slabbed.
That's right.
I'll give you an example. S1, Tomb of Horrors. We all love S1. S1 does great. S1 had 9 printings. There are a lot of them. There are
oh God, Mr. Gunn was away for a few weeks and now he's whining again. Let him go.
God. But there's a lot of S1s out there. So if you have an average quality S1, congratulations. Everybody does. If you have a near mint S1, okay, that's different. So that's people have to realize, and a lot of people just getting into the hobby don't understand that a lot of this stuff is not rare. B2 had over 1 million printings, or 1 million copies. Sorry, not 1 million printings, 1 million copies. Now it's still hard to find a really nice copy of B2. Why? Because we all played it. Every copy you see is well worn and well loved.
Yes.
Every once in a while, you'll come across a beautiful B2. If you had a beautiful B2, I would slab that. Because it is legitimately rare to have a near mint copy of B2. But if you're going to do this, like I said, if you have any questions, you can always contact me offline because I've been doing this for a year now. But just get the nicest, either something that's really nice or something that means something to you. Like I last week I showed the B1 signed by Darlene.
We got to quit talking. We got to knock off Slab Fest 2024. So moving on. Don't if it's garbage, don't slab it. And
Yes.
if it's garbage, don't slab it and then put a crazy high reserve on it.
Don't ask $500
And then be like,
for it.
I don't understand why it didn't sell. And apparently, you know, I don't know what else to say. So let's come back to the Gen Con auction is a staple of Gen Con. It's been at Gen Con ever since Gen Con started. It has been legendary for collectors over the years. It's just one of those things that once you discover it, it pulls you in and you never want to leave, right? You can find all sorts of stuff. I sold most everything that I took. I brought home perilously few things that are probably going to go to Goodwill when I'm finally able to go see people, since I'm still COVID positive. But what I would say is rumors of Gen Con's collectible auction not being up to snuff is horseshit. It's clear based on what we had in here. The collectibles auction, I'm sorry, the charity auction was a raging success. The charities were happy, unbelievably happy. We have a lively crowd that now brings silly adult things to the auction. So now we have to, I think we might actually have to have a collectibles auction after 10 o'clock items only list.
Ooh, a midnight
you know,
auction.
we discovered that Harold Johnson is in fact a secret romance novel writer. And I'll have a lot of jokes about Shrine of the Tomoe-con that are not suitable for this podcast. But it was a good time. It was a very good time. So let me sort of finish my Gen Con stuff. We'll talk about, my Kingdom Death experience. And so Kingdom Death now rents space near their booth so that they can run elements of their game. And I'm a Kingdom Death fan for a lot of reasons. Number one is, use Word for Workshop, and we had a game called Warhammer Quest, right? So kill monsters, get treasure. This was a more interesting version of what had been Hero Quest and Advanced Hero Quest. Warhammer Quest had neat miniatures, but also too there were some mechanics. And so Adam Poots, that started Kingdom Death, it was one of the most successful game Kickstarters ever, has really, really, really developed something that's got a life of its own. So what's the big problem we all face? It's finding people to play with. Now, Kingdom Death doesn't lend itself really easily to playing online with other people in other places, so it's not like a virtual tabletop that flies really well. But the heart of Kingdom Death is that they have decks of cards that there's an AI deck, an artificial intelligence that drives the encounters, the wound system, all the little bits and bobs under the hood give you a pretty seamless experience. And so there's an expansion called the Black Knight. I did the same event twice. I did it on Thursday afternoon. We beat the Black Knight. We did it again on Saturday around noon, and I died, and I'll speak to why. But both times, great fun at the table, and a really, really great insight. If you want to just sort of get a glimpse into what's under the hood for Kingdom Death and how it works and so on, high recommend, really, really high recommend. But my second game, I had that guy at the table. We had an Italian. We had a weedy Italian, I'll call him.
Oh, Natalia!
And so in the encounter with the Black Knight, if you hit the Black Knight, there's a chance that he turns around and just wails on you. Not a surprise. And on the board, he can knock you back into a statue that's called an elastomere statue. If you hit it, essentially they're oriented north. They have 4 surface angles: northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. And if you hit it, you're going to go shooting off 90 degrees from the direction you came. So I put my character down behind the Black Knight, and I'm very conscious of where I placed it so that if I get knocked back, I'm going to go to the north. And this guy says, no, move here. And he moves me one where I'm now going to go to the south. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to die if he knocks me back because I'm going to go off the board. He's like, no. We go back and forth a couple of times, and he moves me. He keeps moving me. And he says, well, I need to move that empty square to hit. And I'm like, oh, okay. Sure enough, right? And I'm trying, like, come on, you're trying to be nice at a con game. And you should never be nice at a con game. Lo and behold, he doesn't even move into the damn square. I get hit, I go off the board and die. I'm the first casualty. And I'm just like, this is going to set back Jim Kitchen Italian relations for at least a decade. And truthfully, it was a great insight into, we all know games we played in where somebody wants to move our miniatures because we're not moving them enough or fast enough or doing the right thing. And we have those bullies we have those tabletop bullies, and they're out there. And truthfully, the person running, the guy running the game said, after the game was over, he said, "You really handled that well. I'm really sorry." And I said, "Yeah, come on, I'm old enough to let it go. But I still have a new chapter in my book of grudges. I'm not going to let it go, and I'm going to remember this for a long time. And if I ever start to do this at a con game, I'm going to catch myself and say, do I want to be that weedy Italian guy? And I do not."
Because look, con games are about fun. I remember when I played Tower of Gygax back in 2008. That is a game that went 24 hours all through that. I think for 2007, 2008, I want to say 2009, before Gary died and Gail took the IP over. But Tower of Gygax, what it was is a series. Every hour was a new room, and you went through the room. And the whole point of Tower of Gygax, Jim and Eric, was to die. Because if you die, you got this kick-ass little badge that said, "I died at Tower of Gygax," and I have one of those. And what you did was you sat at the table, you took the pre-gens, you played. Is when you died, you got up. The guy behind you went and he sat in your seat and he started playing. So the object is to roll through players. It's to die. Your object is to die, get the little cool badge, and then you go to the back of the line and somebody else has played. So we're doing this, and I'm doing this for a couple hours, having fun because I'm with some friends of mine that came to Gen Con. And there was the one guy, as Jim said, the one guy.
There's always the one guy.
He goes there. He doesn't want to die. Not understanding the whole concept. So while we're sitting there, so we go to this room, it's full of skeletons. It's like 100 skeletons. And if you touch the skeletons, they come to life. And the whole point is to sneak through and not touch them. So of course, I run in there and I kick the first skeleton because let's get this over with. Let's start killing skeletons. And then next guy will kill. This guy runs to the back of everybody and hides for the entire hour. So just so he can say he lived through an hour of Tower of Gygax. He gets no badges, no prizes. Nobody's able to fill his spot. Meanwhile, the rest of us are, I think I must have done that event 3 times because we're dying so much. I'm going to the back of the line, then I'm up there 10 minutes later going back and forth. And this guy at the end goes, "Yeah, I didn't die the whole time." He hid in the back and didn't roll his dice once. And he was proud of that fact. Myself, my friends were there. This is about 3 o'clock in the morning this happens. We wanted to drag him out in the alley and beat the living shit out of the guy. Because he's so clueless about what the whole point of the event was.
And in 31 years of going to Gen Con, it's been 31 years since I started going to Gen Con. I've never played in a game at Gen Con, and I finally decided to do it. And I love that I had a 50-50 shot of getting a peckerhead in my group, and I sure enough got a peckerhead in my group on Saturday.
That's what you need, right? I mean, my one Gen Con, I think was 93 or 94. I think it was 94. Spelljammer was the rage, so TSR had out this huge Spelljammer.
I struggle to believe that Spelljammer was ever the rage.
They thought it was
92, maybe 92.
and it had constant combat going on. And Dale Slade Henson was running the thing. And I was like in my mid-20s, and I'm having fun. No idea what the rules are, but I'm playing. And then Dale goes to me. He's like, "Hey, you free for like the next 10 minutes?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, what's up?" I need to run off to the bathroom. Do you mind covering? I go, "I don't even know what the hell I'm doing." He goes, "High rolls are good. They roll low, you can't."
Just shut up and roll the dice, kid. Shut up and roll the dice.
I go, "You're kidding me?" He goes, "You've DM'd in the past, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." "The dice rolls don't matter." I'm like, "Okay." Half an hour later, because went to the bathroom, had a smoke break, got something to eat. He goes like, "Oh, how'd it go?" "Yeah, I killed a lot of people." "Did they have fun?" "They seem to." He goes, "All right, yeah." I think I got a mini out of the deal, a pre-painted mini to walk off with.
It's all good. It's all good.
My other victories at Gen Con, I took a picture of Jeff Grubb, Alan Hammock, and 2 or 3 of the other guys at the Diana Jones Award. I was the person who actually took their picture, which was kind of nice just to get a nice picture of the 4 of them together.
Right.
I got my Fight in the Skies poster signed by Mike Carr, who I love this. Mike Carr is still rocking a Dawn Patrol t-shirt from the 1980s. And it's double-sided, it's glorious, right? Like, you go Mike Carr. And I should say that Mike Carr's little great the bumper stickers that he had printed up that say Questrion, former home of Rohan and Zeligar. Those were in our swag bags this year at Gen Con, and I just was howling. I was like, that's excellent. That's just fabulous. But Gen Con was good. Gen Con was really good. I find whatever your game is, going to a convention and playing in one of these sorts of games, playing with people who love the game as much as you love it, it does a lot for your soul. It really does a lot for your soul. Working at the auction house, I can't tell you the people who win the things that they've been looking for forever. They're so excited. And I love it. People come up to me after the auction and they're like, well, what did this sell for? What did this sell for? What did this sell for? And I'm like, dude, I'm in the moment. I don't remember prices and I have no time to write stuff down. Like, I remember the TSR. I remember the D&D box set sold for $16K. Everything else is out of my mind as fast and as furious as we're going. But watching people's faces when they win something they've really wanted for a long time, when, a few years ago, we had a young couple that were at the auction. It was at the old location, and it was a brown box. And it wasn't a first printing. I think it was a second or third printing. And they were up against their self-imposed ceiling. And you could see that he wanted to go higher, and he kept looking to her, right? Like, okay. And they got to the point where they pulled their card down. And I said something like, "Are you sure?" And this kicked off like a furious little discussion between the husband and wife, right? And we went through a couple more bids, and then he came back in. And they ended up winning it. And they came up to me after the auction, and the two of them are just beaming, grinning from ear to ear, and they're stupid happy about this. And he says, and I think they won, I think they win a couple $100 more, but whatever, they won. And when they won, it was like their grail. They finally had a wood grain, and they were so happy to have a wood grain, and it was complete, and they were over the moon. And when they say, like, we were sort of out, but then we talked about it and we were back in, and we're so glad we won, and so on. That's why you do this, right? That's why you do this, is to connect people with the stuff that they want, that they love, right, that they're going to be happy to have, that they're going to cherish, and so on and so forth. And that's it. That's what drives us all. That's the best. So,
well, thank you. That is an awesome,
God, I've numbed you to death.
I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I'm glad you were there. That's great. I love having your inside stuff on stuff like that, and I'm sure you did a great job at the auction. Congratulations, Jim. No, really. I mean, we are very, very proud to have Jim do the North Texas auction. We don't deserve him. We're not worthy.
Stop.
He goes from 20-something thousand items to like 35, but he does just as good his job. And you get Jim unfiltered, which is worth the price of admission. Because we allow Jim to roll a little blue. He rolls a little blue during the North Texas auction, which he can't do that during Gen Con, but he does it during auction.
No,
so it's
but I think my next auction coming up is Gamehole, and Gamehole's a big collectibles auction. A lot of people bring rare items to Gamehole. I sold my copy of Brimstone. I probably would have gotten a little more for it at the Gamehole auction, but that's all right.
Jim, just real quick, what did you get for Brimstone? I guess it's public knowledge.
Roughly
800.
Yeah,
I think you probably could have got maybe a little more at Gamehole.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, that's fine. You gotta roll with the punches. You're willing to
Sure.
put it in the auction. You have to be willing to you roll the dice. You don't know what you're going to wind up with. But I guess the last thing I would say is, if you're putting things into an auction, have some common sense about it. You know, one of the things I did is I partnered with some Dwarven Forge sets, and I went online and I looked at all the realized prices of comparable Dwarven Forge sets over the last 6 months at eBay, and I picked the highest price. That's it. That's the highest price, and that's what I set as my reserve. And I sold all of my sets, and I was very happy to. You know, but the internet is out there. There's no shortage of people who can help you reach a good reserve price, give you an idea of what you can or cannot expect for it. And please listen, right? We're all about trying to get you the maximum amount of money possible. But if you have a reserve that is simply out of line with what it is you're trying to sell, it's going to go pretty much the way it's going to go. You're either bringing items to an auction to say I put them in the auction, or you're bringing them to sell. And okay, you know, which is it going to be? Do you want to sell it, or do you want to carry it home, or do you want it to find a new home? And that's up for individual sellers to decide. I can't force them to do one thing or the other.
So, Eric,
should we have there been permutations in the force around WotC? I feel like there was a disturbance in the force.
The first hour was all happy and puppy dogs and rainbows, and we had a great time at Gen Con. And we're going to go from the penthouse to the outhouse here, and we're going to talk. Eric's been on this all week. I'm going to let's let Eric roll with this. We don't even call it This Week in Gaming Stupid anymore. We just call it This Week in WotC Stupid.
Yeah, well,
because this is a killer. This is a killer, Eric.
Well, I mean, it is self-inflicted. So there are many moving parts to the WotC story. As Jim mentioned earlier, they released a player's handbook, a physical version, at Gen Con. I believe it was 750 copies a day over the 4 days. If you want a copy, they are up on eBay. Feel free. I think the lowest price I saw as a buyout was $120. I saw $180, which included the die, the badge, ribbon, the wristband, whatever. I mean, it's out there if you want to say I have it. Okay. So there were, and I know folks are going to be shocked by this, there were PDFs that were distributed to certain influencers. And they were distributed prior to Gen Con with an embargo. And if you don't know what an embargo is, it is, hey, we're giving you this early. You can't talk about it until this date and this time. That's the deal that you agree to. So also, and I don't ask me how I know this, but apparently these PDFs were watermarked. So if they perchance, it would have said for this PDF to for Tenkar Tavern across every page. Okay. So every influencer that is involved with D&D obviously wants to be the first one out the gate to show what they have. Also, people like Mike Shea, aka Sly Flourish, who and this is the interesting part that I find, he saw the restrictions that were being given to the PDF and said, hey, you know what? I don't want your PDF. And they're like, okay, that's fine. We'll send you a physical copy when the book releases for Gen Con. And he's like, okay. And they gave him no restrictions. Interesting. So this story hit the interwebs when Jordan, with extra letters in his online name, who is an influencer who I never caught before, decided that they were going to do a page-by-page flip-through of the Player's Handbook. and their instructions did not say any restrictions of this sort. But they immediately got a C&D and followed by a copyright strike. Now, if you're a YouTuber, the last thing you want is a copyright strike. It is the first step to deleting your channel. And we do this because we enjoy what we do. We're not making. I'm not paying car payments because of this channel, which we were. But many of these influencers are D&D 5e 2024, whatever, is literally bread and butter for keeping them gainfully employed, or at least better employed. Well, this person, Jordan, freaked out when this happened. But then it became known that other people were getting caught in this miscommunication. We're going to be nice. We'll say miscommunication from WotC, because Mike Shea, who said, yeah, I don't want those restrictions that you can attach to the PDF. No, thank you. But you're going to give me a free hard copy. Thank you. Awesome. He does a video. And he does the videos ahead of time. He's a professional. We're not professionals. We're the amateur hour here, but we enjoy what we do. And he is then contacted by WotC with to remind you, these are the following restrictions that you have on your videos, already filmed and ready to go. And he's looking at these restrictions that he was never informed of. He's being reminded of stuff that they never told him. You can't show more than 75% of a page. You can't show the art, apparently, was one of the restrictions. So, and then that was immediately followed by another email personally addressed to him, where the individual, I guess, from their the coordinator for the influencers, like, hey, yeah, you just got an email, and so yeah, you might have already done like a video or something, but yeah, so like this stuff should have been like told to you before, and it wasn't. But so like you just have to obscure 75% of the book, each page. That's all you gotta do. So only. So I mean, yes, I believe YouTube even includes a tool where you can do so.
So let me just get this straight. They want these influencers to review the books, but please don't show the books.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't show the books. And now, why is that? Well, again, somebody who apparently had the PDF and showed every page blurrily, uploaded it to one of those files. I don't know if they did. Somebody watched the video, screen capped every page, stitched together a poor quality PDF, and shared it on one of the file sharing services, which then got hit with a takedown. After
once again, wouldn't it just be easier for somebody to buy a copy off of eBay?
Oh, and then
bring it to their house,
scan it,
and make a PDF of it.
Yeah, scan it.
Why would they need to take screenshots?
Well, the reason is because that was probably the first video out there, and somebody was feeling like they had their oats. I'm like, oh wow, this is great. I can make a copy of this. WotC is so afraid of their PDFs being pirated that they don't give you PDFs, which is why people make pirate PDFs. It is.
So
they're already being pirated. This is idiotic. It's idiotic.
Come on, let's not forget fourth edition, where the PDFs came out before the pirated PDFs came out before the actual books landed.
Yes.
The problem is as soon as you send out PDFs if you send PDFs out for review, you are creating the problem because you've taken your finished product and you're sending it out. There's no shortage of ways that you can fix this. The other is that we had documents, we had internal documents. One of the things that Workshop did, we had a production schedule, right? And the production schedule went out 2 years. Actually, it went out 3 years. But everything in year 3 was very much 20,000 foot level. Just, this is what's going to come out this quarter. This is what's going to come out this quarter, and so on and so forth. The granular, the really, really granular was the 1 year. And then semi-granular was 2 years out. And by that, I mean, if this was the year that 40K was coming out, we knew the date of 40K, we knew the date of when the Space Marine Codex was coming out. Like, all of that was done because we worked 18 to 24 months in advance to get everything published. The schedule, the production schedule, was a controlled document. You had to have access to you had to have a reason to have access to that, because we never wanted that to leak out. I had a friend that I used to work with who worked for one miniature company, went to work for another miniature company. And when he went for the other miniature company, who's no longer in business, he gave them the first miniature company's production schedule.
Oh.
And this allowed Company B to release some things ahead of Company A's schedule. I'm not friends with this person anymore. We ended up, another person and I ended up having a discussion about this person on Saturday. And you are who you associate with. You really, really are. But production schedules, oftentimes, if you are sent a copy of a production schedule or you are sent a control document, you should be pretty confident that there is an error somewhere within that, or something that you don't know about unless you went through it with a fine-tooth comb, that is on every page that allows that document to be identified as the one that you were sent. Sometimes it's 2 numbers that are reversed. Sometimes it's a capitalized letter when it shouldn't be capitalized. Sometimes it's a comma instead of a period. Whatever it is, if there are 37 people that get the document, there can be 37 variations so that we can identify exactly who had that if it leaks. And I know that it has been used to find leaks. Did this at Microsoft, everywhere. So the notion that they're sending these PDFs out and they don't have them watermarked where they can trace, in case one of these idiots, in case one of these influencers, and we all know how powerful influencers are. When's the last time you paid for my vacation? Because I need you to pay for my vacation. I have no sympathy. Like, these are self-created problems. And if you wanted to control access, there are mechanisms so that you could send them a link and they could look at it. Yeah, they could probably screen capture it. But if you put it in a secure window and so on and so forth, at least you're not giving them the damn PDF to email out to their buddies and their friends and their file sharing friends.
Well, the whole thing is WotC wants all the attention, but they don't want to actually take any responsibility for what they're distributing to give them out there. Like I said, the PDF that I know that's floating around, and it's probably like, the number I heard was about 1,800 downloads before the hosting site got hit with a C&D and possibly a copyright violation by WotC. Had a certain influencers, this was issued to Jackass, and everybody knows. And yes, I know people who can go into a PDF and remove any watermark, remove any layer. But like Jim said, they're not going to catch the little pieces that are there as identifiers to find who put this out into the wild. I mean, the reality is, like Professor Dungeon Master did a video comparing D&D 24 Player's Handbook to Shadow Dark, and he made a point of obscuring the whole damn Player's Handbook as he went through. including to the point with stick figure cover, which looked, I like it. A stick figure cover and stick was, again, doesn't want to get in trouble with WotC. Whereas Kelsey is like, listen, you show anything, any page, as many pages as you want, show it.
Look, Jim knows this. We all know this. 5 minutes after your item is published, it's going to be a PDF and it's going to be on a pirate site.
Somewhere there's a gargoyle with halitosis at a scanner knocking themselves out to be the first person to put it to the man because your RPG is too damn expensive. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Michael Shea made the point in his video, which I thought was good. Just, WotC, just put out PDFs. You're fighting a losing battle. Look, the music industry got its ass kicked because they thought it'd be fun 20 years ago to sue grandmas and teenagers and soccer moms for copying music that wasn't theirs. Gasp! And they went to court and they won cases and they looked like a bunch of dicks because they were suing grandmothers.
They did. Yes, they did. You made grandma cry on the stand.
What did you do?
And not only that, they didn't stop pirated music at all. Pirate music didn't stop. People just got better pirating music. And so they stopped. After a while, they admitted defeat in the court of public opinion, and they just stopped doing it because there was no point. WotC, like I said in my post there, it's like they're living in 1999, and they're scared of pirate sites. Pirate sites might pirate our multi-billion-dollar game, and we might lose, I don't know, $5.
I mean, come on. This is.
We all remember when Pride. Go ahead, Jim.
This is if 3D printing is supposed to bring down the man, right? Is going to destroy Games Workshop and all the others. Let's remember the Trove, right? Nobody talks about the Trove anymore, but the Trove yes, right? I can go on Google right now and I can find websites with PDF copies of things that came from the Trove or elsewhere. And if I needed to dig up a shabbily scanned item, I could. If I wanted to find 3D models of copies or whatnot of Games Workshop miniatures or whatnot, like I love being in the groups where somebody's like, it's on the purple site. Dude, do you really think that the IP lawyers at Games Workshop haven't figured this out? Like, you're a moron. And again, it comes down to I had a great moment. I had a great moment in the auction. I'm sorry, I'll just bring this up, right?
Yeah.
But we had a guy who put something in the auction because when he got the box, it didn't have bases. The box set did not have any of the bases it was supposed to. And because it didn't have the bases, he was putting it in the auction. He was getting rid of it. It was dead to him. And I'm not portraying the tag inaccurately. Like, it literally, he was just, I cannot be bothered to I can't. I just can't. And what was so funny was all you have to do is reach out to the company and contact their customer service and say, hey, here's the batch number, which is usually on the inside of the box. Tell them what the batch number is, and they will send you the damn bases for free because mispacks happen all the time. But here's somebody who's aggrieved and has this chip on their shoulder. And the only thing some of these people have, they don't have one chip, they have two chips, and they're struggling with the weight of all of it. And come on, right? Like, even then, somebody just mentioned the Trove in the comments. The hilarious about that was they had all this pirated stuff, and then there was all the advertising space that they were doing. All this advertising space. And in the end, nobody misses the Trove. The files are going to get out there. You've always got the misanthropes that are going to scan stuff and put it out there to stick it to the man. I just don't have time for this. I don't have time.
I still remember when Wizards of the Coast was initially selling their PDFs on drive-thru, and then all of a sudden somebody at Wizards went, "Oh my God, they're distributing our PDFs." Well, first off, the initial PDFs that WotC was selling were such horrible scams.
Terrible.
They were horrible. But yes, I had bought a few. I forget which one it was actually missing a page when it was scanned. Great job, WotC. And they gave like a 48-hour notice or less that not only were they going to cease selling, but you couldn't even download what you bought, and they weren't going to refund your money. And
so I want to find. I think I'll be able to find this. Keep talking. I need to find this because I want to read something out loud. But give me just a minute.
Yeah. So then, when they brought the PDFs back, they wanted people to volunteer to give them good copies of their classic material, so they could destroy it in it. They weren't compensating you. They wanted the public to donate copies so WotC could make money, which really tells you.
So what gets me about this I don't know why I'm getting such a horrible echo. Am I getting an echo with you guys? I'm getting a terrible echo.
You're getting echo.
I'm sorry about that. Anyway, what gets me about this whole situation is that so it's a two-way street. The influencers get people watching their videos because they want to find out what's new in the newest rulebook. WotC gets free publicity, basically free. I mean, it's free publicity. They're getting all these people that have millions of subscribers talking about their new game. It's almost like WotC doesn't understand marketing. Oh, wait. The last year has shown they have no clue about marketing, because it would seem you would put less obstacles in the way of somebody talking about your book. Look, nobody is going to take screenshots of your stuff and publish it and you care about it. It's not going to be a good copy of whatever you're doing. Somebody within an hour of the book coming out could take it and make a perfectly beautiful PDF and put that on a pirate site. So the fact that they're cracking down on legitimate influencers, which Lord knows I'm not a backer of influencers. I just think you're basically selling your soul for tidbits. You're saying, please, sir, could I have another?
Please pay for my vacation.
Yeah.
Please pay for my vacation.
Yeah. And then they slap you down and say, you're going to do what we tell you to do, influencer. Like, okay, I will. Just give me some free stuff. I like free things. Please give me some free stuff. But why would WotC risk another public relations disaster for the off chance possibly that a guy didn't cover up 75% of the page, and on the off 1,000 to 1 chance I'm going to take a picture of that page and I'm going to publish it in a PDF of a book that's going to be available in 2 months anyway?
Right.
They're getting free publicity for this. They're getting freebie. They're getting free publicity. Why? It's like, as Michael Shea said, I watched Michael Shea's whole video last night. As he said, he spent a lot of time making this video. This video is crap now. It looks like crap because it's got blurred out pages. And he was just pissed. He was pissed. You could tell he was pissed because it's like, he wasted all this time making this really nice video promoting WotC's product, promoting their product. And they told him, no, we don't want you to promote our product. Don't take that down. So now he has a shitty video of blurred pages. And as Jim said, meanwhile, you have Kelsey over here who's like, I don't care. And by the way, who once again swept the Annie Awards. Good for Kelsey. Everybody here loves Kelsey. We all love Kelsey. By the way, special guest in North Texas again next year. So,
good. And she's gonna sign everything.
Everything. So I'm going to have her sign my left buttock. I'm going to have her sign it. My left buttock.
Please don't.
Make sure
you like her back.
Yeah. It's going to be at midnight auction. We're going to have her sign my left buttock. No.
Please don't.
I'm sorry, Kelsey.
You need a stunt butt.
Well, I got my brother in a Speedo, so I guess we could roll that way.
No. By the way, D&D Beyond is not PDFs. D&D Beyond is digital that is locked to D&D Beyond. Blue influencer is from podcast to streamer. Listen, we don't
crossover.
There's a crossover. You can be a YouTuber that's an influencer because you're taking compensation to say nice things about, and maybe you believe what you're saying, but you're taking compensation to get the word out. You get an unadulterated opinion of 3 grognardy assholes when you tune in to this live stream. I mean, Come on, listen. The compensation. There's an affiliate link on the bottom of the screen. If you actually like Starfinder, some people do. The Starfinder 2 playtest is linked down below. It takes you to the Humble Bundle. That helps support this channel. But, we don't do advertising and we don't do product reads. And we aren't getting sent free ship from WotC to say good stuff about WotC. They could try. We would still give you our honest opinions. But
So, Patrick's, I'm sorry, Bob said something there. So the influencer should trash the product. That's the problem. That's why the power dynamic is so messed up. They won't. They can't. They don't want. They want free stuff. They want to get the stuff in because it helps. It's a circular thing.
The hand that feeds you.
No. Look, people
I think
are
a lot
watching your
more
channel to see the. Do they want to see WotC? They want to see the rule book. That's why they're watching your channel. If you say, "Well, I'm going to trash WotC," and WotC stops sending you stuff, if that's the whole point of your channel, what are you going to do? And you're screwed.
I'm a big believer that if you're going to review products professionally, right? If you're going to be the person that decides to bear the mantle of being a reviewer, the easiest thing you can possibly do to make all of this, like if you work at a game store and you can look at this stuff and you don't have to buy it, well, that's one thing. But if you're the one paying for it and you're not going with donated, I mean, truthfully, if you want an honest review, you send a product out and you say, we have no strings attached, review it however you want. Bob Bigelow used to write miniatures ads or miniature reviews in Dragon Magazine. And Bob had a completely unequal, Bob was always hounding us for free miniatures. He wanted more free miniatures. He wanted more free miniatures. He wanted more free miniatures. Grenadier was always sending free stuff to Bob. Ral Partha sent free stuff to Bob. And we would talk to Bob because Bob was working at Friends Hobby, a store that's in Wisconsin and is still there and has about 30 years of petrified cat shit in it. But Bob always wanted free stuff. And we weren't sending stuff to Bob. And we got the reviews. When we did send stuff to Bob, one of the things was, I don't get nearly enough things from Games Workshop to review, to have comparables. Give me a break. I give up. But if you ask for free stuff, you're setting yourself up and boxing yourself into a corner is what you're going to do. Games Workshop sends out miniatures for people to paint. They have an embargo that you can't show them before X date. And then after that, they collate pictures from all these people they've sent them to, and then they publish them, all the artists in the same post, right? This is a constant now, right? Well, we sent this miniature out. This is 5 or 6 artists' interpretation of how they would paint it. Here you go, have a look. I just find this obsequious. I find it just this seamy underbelly of influencing and videos and so on and so forth. I just don't get it. I just don't understand it, and I don't care.
It would be. I just get so frustrated because I spend time. I understand what marketing is, and I swear, I think I could make $1 million working for companies that don't understand what marketing is. I don't understand who is telling them this is a great business model to insult their influencers and podcasters and give them strikes. And as Eric said, 3 strikes and you're out. Your channel's gone. Yep. It's gone for good. That's it. You're finished off. So if you have 1.5 million, subscribers, you don't want to lose that. You obviously don't want to lose that, especially when WotC didn't make clear what the rules were, and not only that, they changed the rules midstream because these were not the rules.
And at that point, I'd say I'm not changing anything. I was up to date with the restrictions, and you changed the restrictions after I made the video, and I'm sorry. If this means you're going to exclude me from future releases, honk on Bobo.
Now listen, and when you're, I'm not saying people are paying their rent, that maybe they are making their car payments on this. They can't afford to be, I don't want to say truthful. Truthful. They can't do what would actually be the right thing. They gotta cover their ass. I understand why they have to, But hey, maybe WotC's new position they're hiring for will tell them how to market properly. The monetization designer that they want, who deals with live products, which is essentially something that is constantly updated and is made for you to keep on coming back and feed the piggy for that blue cloak and that flaming sword and for these little extra pieces. Come on, that's what you want out of your D&D, right? You want a monetization designer to be in charge of your marketing. That's the future,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not hiding it. They're not hiding the ball anymore. That's the scary thing. It used to be the WotC of old would try to be good. No, we're not doing that. Now it's like, oh yeah, yeah, come on. This is where we got to put priority.
Well, it's part of the whole pattern of behavior of WotC the past year. We've gone over this time and time again. It gets so boring to even talk about anymore. The fact that they have time and time again shown they have not the basic understanding of how to deal with their public, how to market their items, how to deal with their fans. And once again, and I also watched. So I was going to bring. We'll probably need to spend another show on this, but I want to bring it up anyway. I sent Eric the post from Ryan Dancy, because Ryan Dancy
I read it. Oh my god, that is
mind-boggling.
That's a whole episode, Mike.
That's a mind-boggling post. But basically,
Yes.
Ryan Dancy sat in on one of Ben Riggs' talks or seminars about what is wrong with WotC right now. Why are they screwing up? What are they doing? And lo and behold, it turns out that Jim and Eric and I are absolutely tuned into what's going on, because Ryan Dancy said, and Ben Riggs said the same thing, is that they have executives running the company and not gamers. And we have said that for the last year. And Ben Riggs agrees with that. And Ryan Dancy, who worked at worked at WotC and created the OGL, said the exact same thing. This is a company that is more worried about the bottom line and selling tchotchkes and selling online bullshit than they are about putting out a good gaming product. And look, we've been saying it for a year or so. We got confirmation from one of the best historians of the hobby, Ben Riggs, and one of the legends of our hobby, Ryan Dancy. And like Eric said, we probably need to spend almost a whole show on this, because it was an amazing. It was a post on Ryan Dancy's Facebook page, where he basically went over what he thought was wrong with the industry right now, and it dovetails our thoughts nearly exactly. The same thing that we say time and time again. You cannot, if you were running a company like this, his basic credo or thought was that this is a company that is over concerned about monetization, but doesn't know how to monetize because they don't understand the product. And I think everybody here would agree 100% with that they don't understand the product, and they're so bought into this idea. This is an under monetized product. There could be 1 billion users out there. No, there probably aren't. That it would be nice to think there's 1 billion people out there that want to play D&D, but maybe it's only 300 million. It could be that. Maybe it's not going to monetize more than it's already monetized. It may be everybody that's playing D&D right now, maybe that's who's playing D&D for the future.
Well,
This may not be a product.
That's why the big change to the VTT, which they are apparently going to give the basic part of the VTT for free-ish, but they are obviously monetizing it, and it's going to be, if you want to do stuff, it's going to be part of your D&D Beyond subscription. Remember, you can't even get your Red Dragon and other bonuses unless you've got an advanced subscription to D&D Beyond. And it's going to have microtransactions, and whether that is it's going to be player based. All right, it has to be player forward, because we have been told, going back to Cynthia Williams, that the under monetization is because only the DMs buy product. Players buy what they need, and then they're done, and they need to monetize the other 4, 5, 6 people at the table as opposed to the DM being the one that's buying it all. They need to monetize everyone. And how are you going to do that? Well, the VTT, whether they are selling a subscription to get better service from it and priority, whether they are selling you your, graphical stuff. If you want to, if you want a purple cloak and look like royalty, has no in-game significance, but that's going to cost you $1.50, and it's going to be little things like that. That is how they are going to attempt to monetize D&D, and that's product as service, right? You're not going to own your D&D. It's going to be like playing World of Warcraft, all right, or any of those other things. Like even the ones that go free, but they're free because they can monetize it better when it's free and your guard is down. That's my rant.
I just have to say that after reading, I really wish when I saw that Ben Riggs was doing a lot of seminars at Gen Con, that's the only time I really was like, man, I'd really like to go there. Well, I also want to go there and see Jim auction because that's always a great activity in itself. But I wanted to see Ben Riggs give these talks because they were things that Eric and I and Jim talk about all the time. But having Ryan Dancy talk on them or speak about it was even better. But I am really looking forward to Ben Riggs' book that's supposed to come out of these interviews he did in late 2023 with staff that was fired from WotC, because it sounds like it's going to really blow the doors off this from what he said.
And this is a good time to mention, I happened to bump into Mike Merrills at one point during Gen Con. And you talk about a guy who is happy and excited about stuff that's coming and thrilled to be working where he is. It's great when you see somebody finally escape it and is thriving, frankly. I mean, he looks happier. He's not got all this. Dancy hits on a number of things that are true, right? We can all say we don't like to see Christmas layoffs, but we didn't pick what Hasbro's corporate calendar is. And fourth quarter is just where they have to make the cuts when they have to make the cuts. And it's ugly and it's rude. And I wish they wouldn't do it, but they've chosen that that's when they drop the hammer. And as a business unit is making more money, it's easy to scale up. But as soon as things start to go down, you have to make cuts somewhere. And that's ugly. It's really, really ugly. Dancy makes a great point. Holy crap, there's a lot of executives at WotC.
And we say that all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
There are a shit ton of people with executive responsibilities for a firm that doesn't have that many people. And you need to trim wood. Think about how many people that got laid off that could have had their payroll. I mean, these are the people who make the product versus, you've got all this executive band going across at a high level. You could ditch a couple of these people, pull some direct reports under them, and you wouldn't have had to have so many people walked out of the building in December. He really dives into three different arguments, and one of the things that I think is very interesting, we unfortunately focus on the old. You said grognard earlier. I'll use that, but the original D&D players versus the new D&D players, and Dancy gets it right when he says. That, I mean, he doesn't speak to that at all, right? He leaves the culture war stuff out of it. All of that stuff aside, Hasbro wants to turn this into a digital moneymaker versus what it has traditionally been. And Hasbro has spent a colossal poop ton of money trying to do this and has never had the success that they wanted. And he makes a very fair point about spin this off. Sell the digital rights and take a licensing deal, right? Say that you can have the rights to D&D and monetize the shit out of it, and we'll take 20% and walk away from this mess. Right. And he also talks about how they're not honest about the transition, and that their lack of they're not transparent in their change. And it is this lack of transparency that leads to the arguments that we all have and the hurt feelings and the anger and the resentment and all the rest of it. Eventually Hasbro's going to have to answer why sales are down and they continue to crater and why they're on this downward projection. And Wall Street's going to crack a whip. And as soon as they start seeing their employee stock purchase plans cratering, they're going to make the changes at WotC they need to make. And they're going to be ugly, right? I think we said it before. You don't have executives like Ryan Dancy who are the executives at WotC right now. You know, remember who Ryan Dancy was. This is the guy who went to Lake Geneva. This is the guy who crawled through all the filing cabinets at the time of the acquisition. This is the guy who got to see under the hood and see what a mess Lorraine had left. This is not an inconsiderate intellect coming to bear on the problem. And we talk about it. I think it's very easy for us to lean into, you know, I was playing D. I got dice older than you, kid. That's the phrase. I got dice older than you, kid. Right? There's that element versus the 5e people. But if there's anything that the 5e people have come to understand is, you don't need an entire bookcase worth of books.
Yeah,
you can get by with the 3 or 4. And executives, good executives know you don't need a shit ton of VPs. I'll tell the example. My wife had 10, 11 direct reports.
Ooh.
And when she took the job immediately, right? So let's just talk about that. She had 11, I think it was 11 direct reports. How do you give each one of these people an hour a week and still get all the rest of your job done, right? That literally 11 hours out of a 40-hour work week. And come on, it's not a 40-hour work week. But how in the world do you get quality time? And so very quickly, one of the things that comes to be is that you start actually watching people and you start making them work. And then what happens is when you start making people work, the people who are worthless quit.
Right.
You don't fire them. You just start holding their feet to the fire to do their job. And eventually they're like, I'm out of here. Okay. And we don't fill that person's job. We give those responsibilities to somebody else. Pretty soon you start winnowing, you start cutting the dead branches out, and you wind up with an executive team that's all focused and going one direction. They understand the key priorities and everything else. And WotC hasn't been through that yet. WotC needs a president that needs to be ruthless. They need a ruthless president who says, why do I have 13 direct reports? Or however many executive directors? Okay, sure. Like, can't we just start combining some of this and having a hard look at that? And that hasn't taken place yet. But guess what? The more that WotC doesn't deliver, the more likely that's going to happen. We all talked about the former president of WotC when she left, and ooh la la. If you have somebody that's looking at this as a 2-year job or a 3-year job as a bridge to their next job, they're not going to make the kind of systemic changes that somebody needs to make.
Right.
If they're looking at it as, I'm going to be here as long as it takes to fix this mess.
But as we say, Jim, they're not lifers. This is the first time in the history of D&D that the company is being run by people who are not gamers and did not rise to the ranks of playing games.
Yep.
They don't play games. They don't write games. They haven't illustrated. They don't know anything about games except that it's a product that they're supposed to monetize. And this is ever since Ray Winninger was fired in late 2022. You have not had somebody in the executive position that is an actual gamer and knows about games. And like you said, Jim, the problem with that is you're just going to roll through people who are going to use this as a stepping stone to something else. All the while, they're not adding anything to the equation because they don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand RPGs. Ryan Dancer makes another point in there. They don't understand RPGs to the point that they think that this digital thing is going to take the world by storm without understanding the basic aspect of role-playing game, which is a face-to-face pen and paper game. Now, I may not like that. Maybe the executives at WotC might not like that. I mean, I happen to like it. They may not like it, but that is the basis of the game. It's sitting at a table, rolling dice, yes, it's great that you have digital stuff. I think the digital stuff probably will do okay. But as Dancy also makes the point, this may only be a $30 million a year business. It may not be $1 billion business. And so when you get these businessmen in here who worked for Amazon, they worked for Microsoft, they worked for Blizzard, they work for these gigantic companies that are used just to piles of money rolling in, they're not going to understand the aesthetic here. They're not going to understand that. Wait a second. And not only that, we don't have Baldur's Gate 4 popping up anytime soon. We don't have another D&D movie coming anytime soon. So we don't, and hopefully, God help us, we don't have another COVID epidemic that causes us all to hunker down inside our apartments and houses and have to play online for 2 years. Without all those things, which is the perfect storm for D&D, they're not going to have the kind of profits they had 2 and 3 years ago. And when Wall Street sees this, they're going to say, oh, look, there's a company that was making this much, and now they're only making this much. They must be failing. They're not failing. They're returning to the mean. That may just be what D&D is. That's at least my opinion. I just think that's what D&D is. D&D is never going to be a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Well, and let's look at let's look at what is probably the biggest setback as Wizards has tried to tack a party line, to tack a company line, right? One of the things that comes up in Dancy's comments in the discussion is, okay, so I was making some Spellfire cracks earlier, or not Spellfire. I was making some Spelljammer cracks earlier, and I had a couple of really good jokes, mostly centered around the terrible Jim Holloway artwork as being the reason that Spellfire didn't do well. But
Sorry,
yes,
Jim.
somebody just said they've caught the COVID's going around. Yes, we know COVID's going around. Some of us have been living in a basement since they got back from Gen Con on Sunday. Thanks a lot. But let's talk about a lack of creativity. And when I say that, how much of what we have seen from Wizards since 5e came out is just a rehash and a rehash and a rehash. And I say that because when we look at the late 80s, early 90s, Lorraine took over the company, but oh God, I'm going to be struck by lightning. Lorraine did some good things. Lorraine said, go. Like, they got Forgotten Realms in, right? Like, they wanted to put Greyhawk behind them, so they bought the Forgotten Realms and they ran with the Forgotten Realms. And I've heard people say there was too much Forgotten Realms product. I've heard people say, oh my God, there wasn't enough. Mercifully, they are few and far between.
Oh, thank God. Yeah.
But let's talk about Spelljammer. Wasn't as successful as they sort of hoped. Dark Sun. Whoa. Right? All the complaints that you hear about 5e being, it's Dungeons & Dragons with nerf and bumpers, and you'll be fine, and you'll be okay. Right? Dark Sun was like, come on, let's go. Strap in, you're gonna die.
You need a stable of characters so you'll have something for the next session.
You've heard of the funnel? Ours is a wood chipper, and it just eats your characters left, right, and center.
You started out at second level. There was no first level dark side characters. You started out at second level because
that's right. And then let's talk about Planescape. Holy shit. Right? Like these are four different settings that came out within less than 15 years, and 3 of them came out very quickly, right? So we can call Forgotten Realms D&D 2.0, but Spelljammer, okay, hamsters in space, whatever, crystal spheres, I can't get my head around it. Just live in your Christmas ornaments and have a great life. But Dark Sun and Planescape, these are 2 remarkably interesting settings, deep settings. Planescape is one of the most collectible areas imaginable. It didn't sell A, B, C levels, whatever. But you got to hand it, like, TSR rolled those dice and they put the creatives and let them go. And they created product lines that were amazing, absolutely amazing. I can't think of a single D&D product since 5th edition launched that has any elements of that kind of creativity or that kind of broad scope of creativity.
They're afraid.
I'm not
And they
saying
reinvent the past when they even try it.
I'm not saying.
Yeah,
Or go ahead.
and I'm going to say that we talked about this before. This is shocking to understand. The last campaign world they created was Eberron in 2000.
Nope,
Was
they
it not
didn't.
Eberron?
That was a contest. That was a
Right, but
won
I'm
the
contest.
saying
contest.
that's yeah. Rich Baker did that, or Rich Baker,
Yeah.
right? Ray,
Yeah.
But that was in what 2004, 6. That's the last time they threw their support behind a campaign world. That whole aspect of them is gone now. There's no more.
And
Yes, there was misses like Maztica was probably a miss. Karator was probably a bit of a miss. I don't think it's considered a super popular game world. But the hits, the Planescapes, the Dark Suns, the Ravenlofts were hits, and that's the only way you get the hits is if you make a misses. If you play it safe, you're never going to make the big hits. You're never going to do it.
And okay, I'm going to get struck by lightning a second time. Paizo was, and this point comes up in the comments of Dancy's post, right? That Paizo was creative. The adventure paths were a lot of new, interesting characters and twists and so on and so forth. And a lot of what I would call that driving creative element that was behind WotC in the late 90s, early 2000s left to go to Paizo. And so that brings me back here. I'm going to circle back around. When we look at the things that are so successful right now, like we all keep talking about Shadow Dark. We're going to keep talking about Shadow Dark. Kelsey's going to be doing laps for another year or two, right? Mm-hmm. But a point I made in a discussion last week at Gen Con was we have right now, what we're seeing in the 21st century is we're seeing role-playing game communities coalesce around a particular property. And so I would say that the first one that really strikes me, you can talk about the OSR, but the OSR is very fragmented, right? I watched a dust up on the OSR in the last day or two around something called VentureCon. I'm sort of keeping all of that off to the side. But I would say that the first really nailed it community comes together around a group is DCC. I said last week that I think Shadow Dark is where DCC's community, Shadow Dark today is where DCC's community was at the end of the first year after the Kickstarter for the rulebook. That we're in that period where more people are embracing the property, more people are picking up the ball and running. And where DCC has been doing it for about 10 years and the community has come together, hashtag not a cult, Shadow Dark is now the newest one to sort of come around that. And it depends greatly on how strong your creative, intellectual team has been at creating something that catches people's imagination. And I don't know what the next Shadow Dark is. I can tell you that it's not going to be yet another kickstarted, backer-kitted project that looks like D&D 5th edition or looks like all the rest of this. We open Shadow Dark. I could get it off the shelf here, but when you open Shadow Dark and you start thumbing through it, it doesn't look like everything else. It doesn't. It does not look like everything else. The way that DCC did not look like everything else when it came out. And DCC was very quick to say, welcome to the club. Third party, go nuts. Have at it. We want to do a free thing every year called the Gong Farmer's Almanac. Have at it. Go nuts. And Shadow Dark is picking up that same kind of momentum. I've talked about this before, but I think it's very worrying. If I owned Hasbro stock, if I was somebody working within Hasbro, and I kept looking at what was going on at WotC, the lack of creativity, the lack of trying. Yes, great point. John Miller's point is fabulous, right? We are all sick of Hollywood remakes. Hollywood doesn't have original ideas. They have original ideas very rarely, but more often than not, what we get is we just get, we're gonna make this and we're gonna refilm it and we're gonna do it again. I was talking about A Star Is Born, and I was talking about A Star Is Born, and somebody didn't realize that the Bradley Cooper Lady Gaga movie, that just about every generation gets a new version of A Star Is Born.
Mm-hmm.
It's a timeless story. I don't resent that. There are always new actor and actresses that you can use to make a great movie of, but it's the same plot every damn time. And what we need WotC to do, what we really need WotC and Paizo and the other larger companies in the sphere to do, and what Wizards should be doing because they are the leader, is we need them taking some creative gambles, and we need them taking some, I think one of the least clever ideas they had was the Book of Vile Darkness and the Book of the opposite, right? Ooh, there is a sealed section, kiddies. Ooh, don't open it unless who gives a shit, right? This is easy stuff. But there was the setting, there was the undead setting, the ghosty setting that I can't remember the name of. It was a single book, and I can't remember the name of that they brought out at one point. You know what I'm talking about.
I had the ghost on
right?
cover.
And okay, you did one book, and it wasn't a huge hit, but you at least rolled the dice and gave us a book. I think it's very easy for us to frame it. I think it's very easy for us to frame WotC's problems in the culture war. And I think defining it as I've got dice older than you versus 5e kids, I think that's the wrong way to think of it. I think Dancy actually nails it pretty well when he says it's the digital versus the non-digital. And we all have a stake in this. And we all have a reason to say, well, hold on now. Like I like having a few books. I didn't buy any RPG books at Gen Con. And it's not that I don't look, and it's not that I'm against buying them. I'm sorry, I take it back. I bought one book. I bought the annual yearbook of the DCC annual yearbook at the Goodman booth. But I didn't buy any supplements. I didn't stand in line to buy a player's handbook. If I want them, I'll buy them off Amazon or my local store or something at some point. But where's something that catches the imagination? The last thing that I can remember RPG-wise where I actually went out and tracked a copy down was after I saw Shadow Dark. And that was after GaryCon. And I made a point after GaryCon, the week after GaryCon, I was like, by God, I'm getting a copy of Shadow Dark. And I'm not disappointed by that purchase. I also bought the old school essentials. I bought the OSE box sets because I did not have them, and I saw enough people talking about it and so on that I decided that I was going to read those because I wanted a better frame of reference. And I wanted a frame of reference that was my decision, not have you read this blog post? Have you read this blog post? And so on and so forth. I don't think that's the way you should. I don't think that's the way you should judge these products. I think you have to read them yourself and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I have an opinion.
No, good points, Jim. No, that's all very good points, and I'm with you. I'll buy anything that interests me. I don't care what the company is. I'll buy whatever interests me. And you had two good points there. I did back the Kickstarter for OSE. I backed the Kickstarter for Shadow Dark. As those you watch the show for a while know, I love these little digest things. Gary's Appendix is a big favorite of mine. I buy every issue of Gary's Appendix. There's a couple there. I like to support people who do zines because I like zines. But yeah, WotC is basically they become, they used to be the D&D used to be the outpost of the weirdo, the out there guy, the nerdo, the whatever. They become as homogenized and as boring as mother's milk. I mean, it's just okay. There it is. Your variety D&D. You probably can't die. You probably not gonna. You're gonna get a bunch of healing surges. Nothing's really. I mean, we saw this with the Vecna Eve of Ruin item that we read. It was boring. It was
tepid.
Absolutely.
It was room temperature. It wasn't hot, and it sure as hell wasn't cold. It was just room temperature. And I think actually, so looking at the comments, Patrice says technocrats, accountants, and MBAs took over. Now. I would stop right there. Just because somebody has an MBA, good business people will take a look at a business and know what they can see what needs to be done, right? And just like the people I play with at a con game. On Thursday, my people in the game and Ravenloft. Oh my God, Ravenloft. Ravenloft wouldn't exist if Lorraine hadn't said run with it, right? Right? And I think Ravenloft. I think maybe Ravenloft was in process when the takeover happened, but I'm not 100% sure on the timing. But but good people to lead a business are like hiring a retail employee, right? There's people who can't do the job and they don't even get the job. There's people who get the job and then they don't show up, or they don't do the job, or they do it, and every once in a while you find somebody who's so great at it that they're going to just keep going. And it's that way for MBAs, it's that way for executives, it's that way for every one of these levels, right? I don't know if I ever talked about this on here before, but I used to always say this to new hires, right? There's 4 stages. There are 4 stages to a job, right? There's unaware incompetence. In the first couple of days you have a job, you are unaware of how bad you are at the job. And somewhere around day 2, day 3, you have an oh shit moment where you go, oh, you have aware incompetence where you know that you're crap at the job and you're going to have to really work on it. And what as an employer we want is by day 90, we want you aware competent, where you think about it and you can do the job. And then at the end of the first year, we want you unaware competent, where you don't have to think about it. You can just do the job, right? When I started auctioneering, I was thinking about everything I was saying. The first couple of moments at the mic were my unaware of how bad I was. Then I was aware of how bad I was. And then I had to think about it to do the job. And that was all in the space of about 15 seconds. I'm 10 plus years of auctioneering now. And when somebody says, well, you didn't start at a minimum price. Buddy, there is no minimum price. A good auctioneer knows where to start it, roughly based on the reserve price. And, there's a formula in my head that executes like that. But good people, great leaders, AEG was on the ropes. Ryan Dancy's been a part of the AEG team for 7-8 years now. He was originally with the Alderac group, then he's bounced around. But AEG was on the ropes, and they've come back, and they're stronger than ever. And that's because they've got folks like Ryan Dancy, who are the administrative executive team. WotC will go through an executive purge. You mark my words. And I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen under this president or the next president. But there is going to be a drastic realignment, because you cannot have that many direct reports going to a president and have anything good come out of this. He's absolutely right about this. And what we need is a WotC that isn't afraid to innovate, that isn't afraid to come up with great new, interesting intellectual properties, right? I have a game. I have a game that I have scribbled notes on for years, right? And my game is, you can pick which one of the 2 giant nation states of the world you're from, right? You can pick the more traditional sort of feudal fantasy, Cormer kind of fantasy, Forgotten Realms state, or you can pick the sort of desert tribe nomads and so on and so forth. Pick your starting side. It doesn't matter where you're from, because here's your problem. The Mind Flayers have started to take over your planet, and you're in a losing war. And the only thing you're trying to do is GTFO before the Mind Flayers take over. And you're not going to win. You're fighting a delaying action. And that's an interesting idea, right? Like the whole scope of the game is to try to come up with the adventures you want to run people through are survival, right? Where the end goals is not about, I'm going to level up my character. I'm trying to hold the line before the rest of the world is dead. We struck a deal with the dragons where we're going to make sure the eggs get out as long as they fight to the bitter end. But what's the scenario? Do you role play out the negotiations with the dragons? Do you role play out the alignment of 2 world powers that have hated each other for generations and generations and now have to work together? I don't know, but a 30-second elevator pitch that's a hell of a lot more interesting than anything D&D's
But
published
Jim,
in 20
the
years.
great thing now, the great thing about living in the now, and in the world of post OGL is you can take that and run. You could do your own Shadow Dark, your own OSC, your own, all the stuff that Frog got gave. You could do your own thing, and that's the problem. Is that, and I compare this to comics a lot. So comics is going through a bit of a doldrums right now. As a matter of fact, there's been talk for the last year or so that Marvel and DC are going to have to sell off their assets because they're losing money hand over fist.
Hand over
foot. I don't understand. They have all these great movies that come out. The problem is all the talent left Marvel and DC, and they all formed their own companies. They went to Image. They went to Dark Horse. Ed Brubaker does a whole line. He did some of the best Daredevil and other Batman. He does this whole line of crime comics now on his own label. The same thing happened to Dungeons & Dragons. Your Monty Cooks, the Wolfgang Bars, your Mike Morris, all your Ryan Dancy's, all your creative talent has left, and they're doing their own thing because they want to innovate. They want to do their own cool, backer kit, Kickstarter stuff. That's the problem with these mega corporations. Eventually they lose all the talent because the talent realizes they can make more money, and if not make more money, they can do their own thing. They can do their own thing. Like Jim said, his elevator pitch there. I've got an elevator pitch. Everybody's got an elevator pitch. You can, instead of having to make your elevator pitch, you just do your elevator pitch. You just say, you know what?
Well, okay, so John Miller just made a point. Hasbro could find companies to make licensed video, film, TV, Dragonlance. There was a Dragonlance ready to go. It was ready to go, and it's dead. And again, these problems don't originate with the people that are like, we love this IP, we want to run with it, we've got all the, here we go, here's the script, blah 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 blah. It's dying on the other side of the equation, and that's not the people who want to make this. That's not their problem to fix. It's the other problem to fix. And that's tough. It's really, really tough. So
success can happen. Folks, if you have not checked the RPG on Kickstarter that has blown open the doors, it is at as the show is going, it surpassed 5.5 million in funding. Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. I know nothing about the setting. I know nothing about the books, but it's raised over 5.5 million in what? 2 days, 3 days, something like that.
Oh, did he do another Kickstarter for more books? Is this the old Kickstarter?
This is the new. They changed the name of the Kickstarter right before they launched.
Okay,
but
Sanderson clearly. Sanderson sits at the keyboard for 18 hours a day and writes, and good for him, right? Good for you, buddy. And he's decided, screw it, I don't need to go to the publishers. I'll self-publish and I'll laugh my way to the bank.
Good for him.
That's right. I don't resent that at all, and I think it's genius, right? I'm very happy to see the Kickstarter for the Out West I can't think of the name. The Old West Kickstarter funded while I was at Gen Con. I think it hit its goal. And I'm happy about that, right? Because people self-publish for a couple of reasons. Now, Mr. Sanderson self-publishes because he wants a Scrooge McDuck money bin in his backyard, and good for him. But a lot of people self-publish because they have interesting ideas. They have interesting, clever things, and so on and so forth. Let's not forget that Kelsey spent a year writing Shadow Dark.
Yep.
I don't agree with that comment. Go back. Hasbro doesn't have to be smart. All they have to be is abusive, psychologically manipulative, and soulless while running a pay-to-play game. Like, that's just... Dude. Like... I know what the secret truth is, man. And I'm going to tell you. Like... I just don't buy that. I don't buy that for $1. I'm never going to buy that for $1.
Well, and specifically, they tell you that the monetization designer has to put like the players first. That's in the write-up for the position.
That's right. So
you know they mean it.
Come on, right? Like, give me a break. Just like we don't need to descend into the fever swamps of ranty bullshit. We just don't need to, right? Because the market decides. And the market has very clearly said, we don't like where you're going, we don't like it, and we're not buying your things. I did hear one of the things that was interesting I heard at Gen Con was Magic dealers bitching about how Wizards is printing and printing and printing and printing. And by the way, we've got more printings coming. And the result is,
not good.
You know, I was talking to somebody who has been in this since Magic launched. And he and I had a great conversation about Fallen Empires. And nobody remembers the lessons of Fallen Empires, which was, WotC said, how much do you want? We're not allocating, we're printing to order. And all the distributors were like, oh my God, I need this. We're not allocating, we're printing to order. You don't understand, I need this. And they all ordered stupid amounts. And it didn't matter that WotC said, we're not allocating, we're not allocating, we're not allocating. It showed up, and for a year and a half, 2 years, my God, you could get Fallen Empires for as low as like $15, $20 a booster box from people who would have been desperately happy if you would just pay that much. Like every card store, every baseball card store bought Fallen Empires. Everybody had Fallen Empires, and it didn't sell. And so again, if you've got a memory for this, if you remember this, you know, there are lessons to learn, but the institutional lessons of why we shouldn't do this, if that's not being relayed, if that's not being kept, if the history isn't there, they're going to just make the same mistakes over and over again. Every company is, you know, I guess the other easy thing, a very hard lesson that people fail to learn. When money is easy, when making money is easy, it covers over all mistakes. All those bad decisions are washed away in the tidal wave of cash that your business unit is bringing in. When 5th edition was selling like crazy and was hitting numbers that WotC hadn't seen since the entire time WotC has existed, you know, past 3rd edition numbers, right? We're talking 1980, 81 numbers, right? This is crazy. And all this money's coming in and they can't do anything wrong. And every company that makes a plastic figure or a stuffy or dice trays or whatever, everybody wants a piece of that action. I'm going to say it bluntly, it's really fucking easy to make money like that. And it's a no fucking brainer to make money like that. And you know what, boys and girls? When that stops, that's when you got to start making smart business moves. And so the last president of TSR, she left just before shit got real. She managed to time it pretty fucking well. She's gone. And this new poor bastard, he's inherited all of this. And he has to figure out how to make everybody in Pawtucket happy. And he has to figure out how to make the people who buy D&D products happy. And this is not a job I envy. But the next wave of layoffs, the next wave of cuts, the next wave of tightening the belt, watch the executive level. Watch the departures of the executive level. And it may be 10 years before we ever see a WotC that can create again, that can create the way like we're talking about. But that's okay because the industry as a whole has people like Kelsey. They have people like Joe Goodman. Like Joe Goodman was not doing all these little modules for 3rd edition and 4th edition and just, you know, it was a little stable business and they were going and he had an idea. And he decided to go back to his roots and make something interesting. Kelsey decided to make something really interesting. Look at we never talk about Pelgrane Press, and that's bad on us, right? But Trail of Cthulhu, the Delta Green line from Pelgrane. Like these are amazing product lines. The industry's creativity is there. You just have to look beyond WotC. Chaosium having a conversation with Mike Merrills about Chaosium and his work at Chaosium. This is where the creativity is, and they're going to be rewarded for that. And eventually, somebody at Hasbro is going to say, "Look at all these other people. They're making things and they're selling things, and their booths are getting larger, and they're capturing our market share." And one of the things we see in the surveys when somebody finally fills out the survey and don't say "screw you, WotC," is, why aren't you making something interesting? Why don't we make things that are interesting anymore? Well, we could make some things that are interesting. Okay, sure. And WotC might start making interesting things, but we're a long way from that. They're going to go into survival mode. They're going to go into survival mode in the next 18 months because they have to. They're not going to make the digital transition, and they are going to piss off the people who are book holding users. So where are they going to go? They're going to hit the skids, and then they're going to have to climb back out. And forcing them to climb back out, they're going to have to be creative.
No, we probably need to wrap this up. But one more, I want to bring up one point. This is exactly what happened to comics and what's going on with comics now. In 2008, Jim just realized what time it is, didn't you? In 2008,
I'm sorry.
The first Marvel MCU movie came out, Iron Man. They were printing money for years. And what they told the comic book division is, we don't care. We don't care what you do. You can have terrible art. You can have terrible stories. You can just do garbage because we're making so much money from these movies. And
we expect a crossover every summer across all titles.
So for 16 years, so since 2008, Marvel has put out garbage. Absolute stinking garbage. And it's finally caught up to them 16 years later. The company is doing so badly that DC's even doing even worse. But Marvel's doing so badly, they're looking at licensing the characters out to creators that left 16 years ago that are doing better on independent titles and saying, please come back.
Wow.
We'll do anything. This is the same trajectory that WotC is following, because you had 5th edition, which was so popular. We don't care what you do. It's 5th edition. It's going to sell millions and millions and millions. You're going to have the same crash that Marvel Comics had. After years and years, after ruining an entire generation of comic readers, I don't buy comics anymore. I haven't bought comics since 2010. No new comics. I buy all old trade paperbacks and old comics I used to like. I don't buy anything new. And the reason is because they ruined the superheroes I grew up with. This is exactly what's happening with the game industry. They're destroying the game that we grew up with. And look, I know we're not a big segment of people that buy. We still have money, though. We have money we'd love to spend. And you know what we're doing? We're spending it on the OSR. We're spending it on independent creators like Kelsey, like Weird Frontiers, like Trail of Cthulhu, like Savage Worlds. We're spending money there because we have money to spend. WotC better hope this digital thing blows, like absolutely blows the effing roof off. Because if it doesn't, as Jim said, there's heads are going to roll and roll and roll. Because they're going to say, wait, hold on, we gave you just what we wanted. We gave you a digital platform, and now we're not getting anybody playing our game. You're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Jim's right.
You know, in war, the generals you want are not the generals that you don't want a McClellan. During the Civil War, you don't want a McClellan. Well, my troops are well trained and I put them through exercises every day. I need you to fight. I make sure that they do their drills every day and they get 3 proper meals and I need you to fight. Well, you know, and Grant's like, I'd like to burn a mile-wide path to the sea. You are looking at WotC being led by McClellans. And heaven help the industry when they get a grant. Because eventually they will. They're going to get a grant or a Sherman. And that's it. I'm sorry, I said grant when I meant Sherman. But really and truly, Sherman cut a path to the sea. I'm just going to march through Georgia and I'm going to go. And eventually WotC will get a grant or a Sherman. But right now, they are mired in McClellans. And we are all the beneficiaries of that because it has led to this golden age in RPGs. And I'm happy to be a part of it.
And that's,
Woot.
That's the beauty of this show, folks. We started out with Gen Con. We ended with the Civil War because that's who we are. That's what we do.
John Miller, thank you. Appreciate it. That's kind of like now let me go to sleep. That's what John's saying, right? It's like,
Yeah, he's paying money. Like, look, you guys get off the
Everybody's
stage.
like, I gotta go, man. Shut up.
I think Eric's bladder's about to explode too. We probably need to wrap it up.
Nobody thought my bladder could last this long, let alone me. All right, that's all I'll say. I know TMI, whatever. Listen, huge thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys
Very
were
much
awesome.
so, yes. Very engaging audience. Thank you.
Right now we have 11 viewers on X. We've got we hit a high of 10 on Rumble, so we are multitasking, and we really do appreciate everybody.
I can't believe we still have 25 people watching us here.
I can't believe anybody
why.
turns up every week to hear me rant.
We're all about rant. Between the three services, we've got over 40 people right now.
Thank you very much.
And we're happy that all of you spend this Wednesday night time with us.
And by the way, we didn't even get to Raggy and Zach. We didn't even get to it.
We didn't even. We
didn't even get to it.
There was a limit. This was an overtime. I hope you appreciate it.
I do actually. Somebody just said that. I think we need to do a live talking crit in the auditorium at North Texas.
Yes, let's plan it. Yeah,
and we should do it instead of the pickup that we tried to do this past year. Screw it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right.
And I think what we should do is we should have people submit questions ahead of time or answer them live when we're there. And let's talk about this stuff and
maybe we'll have a little drinky poo at the table too, so we can
definitely
we can kind of loosen our lips a little bit, and I think this will be fun.
Are all three of us going to be at Game Hall?
I won't be.
Oh, no, Eric won't be.
Sorry,
all right.
man.
Well, we could do 2 and 1. That would be good.
Okay.
Oh, look, Gary pops in to say, make sure we have good internet this time.
Thank you, Gary Oliver.
Yeah, Thank you, Gary.
Yeah. All right. Call it a night, folks.
A long time, Gary. All right, folks.
Later.
Next live stream is Friday night, 8 p.m. Saturday at 8, another live stream. See you then. Some video tomorrow. I have no clue. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll this ice, roll them well. Catch you all later.